Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Ronnar, but Boromant's got the inside.
Here in this phenomenal race, Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin to lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name. Well, welcome everybody. We're making history here tonight. It's PSGL, Premier Sim Gaming Leagues, returning to your screens. And in many ways, in new places. We have now announced a return not only to YouTube, of course, as always, as we have been since, of course, we've started broadcasting PCF1, but we are now debuting on Twitch as well. So a big warm welcome to our audiences across the globe and across two very successful platforms. Tonight, we're also marking a return to Canada, a place we have not been in PSGL, certainly at the top tier of racing in such a long time. I think the last time I ever saw F1 esports drivers taking part in Canada, I think it must have been the 2019 Canadian Grand Prix, where we saw David Tanitsa flying upside down in desync chaos over the top of Jarno Opmeer's car. But this time around, folks, like I said, we are back at Montreal, and I am looking forward to it. The championship is looking oh so good right now after Jake Benham's stellar victory back at Silverstone, granting Mercedes' team, of course, not generally factoring in the Red Bull factor with Danny Berejnay. Two Mercedes drivers nonetheless, though, taking victories this season. My name is, of course, George Morgan. Joining me in the commentary box, as always, here at PSGL, it's the one, the only, Dan Field. Dan, how are you, sir?
I'm very happy to be back once again for the Canadian Grand Prix, George. One of my favourite circuits, I think, on the Formula 1 calendar. It's certainly got a lot of character, and it should make for a fantastic race here this evening. And I'm really looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, as am I, Dan, as am I. Now, we've got to talk about Jake Benham, right? I mean, obviously, that has been the main factor behind, obviously, what was a stellar result that came at an unlikely moment, should I say, because there were stronger drivers on arguably stronger tyres. And I find it unbelievable to think that the young man, the all-star as we call him, was able to pull off a result such as that. Of course, we are hearing the cars are going into qualifying, folks, but it is very early days in Q1. Dan, just talk us through what we saw at Silverstone.
I mean, Silverstone was just all over the shop. It was a 1.18 drivers in the fight for the lead. Of course, that was a big DRS train, but there was the possibility for absolutely anything. And there was plenty of drivers, George, on faster, softer, fresher tyres than Jake Benham. And Alfie Butcher, to his credit as well. I do believe a penalty, unfortunately, came the way of the Haas driver, but Jake Benham was able to fend them all off, fight until the very end, and come off with a victory at his home Grand Prix. Maybe he can go 2 for 2 for tonight in Canada. We'll have to wait and see, but Jake Benham, a nice result from him, slots himself now into 5th in the championship.
He does. Now let's take a look at the driver lineups. Brendan Lee and Thomas Ronhard back in Sauber. We've got Tom Manley and Yoni Tormala at AlphaTauri. Luke Smith and Philip Prejnada line up for Alpine. Tamas Gal steps in alongside Jack West. A debut appearance of Tamas Gal this season in PSGL PC F1 for Aston Martin. Dylan Warren and Istvan Pukki for Ferrari. Alfie Butcher and Bench Jabo Konyi lining up as well out on track for Haas. Otis Lawrence now. Controversial moment. Lucas Blakely, who wanted to race tonight, could only race as far as he was concerned, as long as he had the McLaren car. Makes sense, seeing as he is a McLaren driver. But Otis Lawrence not forfeiting the seat. Of course, also a McLaren Shadow Junior. He's alongside Wilson Hughes. Once again, Otis has had a stellar season in his own right, fighting at the top with the very best in the world. Jarno Opmeer in the Mercedes alongside the all-star Jake Benham, who won at Silverstone last time out. Frederick Rasmussen marks his return once again, 3 races in a row. Danny Berejnay, of course, winning the opening round at Portimao, and he is back in the Red Bull. Alvaro Caraton and Ishmael Fassi line up an exciting Williams lineup here this time around as we head to Montreal. Folks, if you want to stay up to date with all the standings, you can do, of course. We do have the ability on social media to share what we have, but here we are. Welcome to Montreal, and the car's now all out on track. Chat, it's been a pleasure. We are back again. We are here on YouTube and Twitch. Major dubs in the chat, if you please.
George, I don't know where to look. There's two different tabs on my screen, and I've got Twitch chat and the YouTube chat, and I'm just wondering which one is going to be more electric here this evening in Canada. It's a very exciting circuit. It's very fast, high speed, and it should make for some great racing. Of course, we're going to be looking a lot down in towards that final sector with the incredibly long DRS straight leading into the very tricky Wall of Champions chicane leading onto the start-finish straight. So this race today, George, could have some very, very big surprises.
Yeah, also a nice surprise for you guys at home as well. Track map is back. It is here in the bottom right-hand corner. So there you go, folks. Thinking of you guys at home, we do love you, our PSGL audience, and I give you everything your heart desires. So there we have. Otis Lawrence is now making his way down out of the Epingle hairpin in towards the Wall of Champions. Of course, the seat that was fraught contested between he and Lucas Blakely. Wilson Hughes, as we can see on the timing tower, obviously not taking part in the rest of quali. He is out for the count. Otis Lawrence going to the top on the intermediate tyres with a 1:13.353. But he's not holding purple at the moment in that middle sector. That grace was given to Istvan Pukki, who is currently in the pit lane at this stage. Ben Charbot-Cogny out on track as well. Naturally, these aren't necessarily representative laps, folks. The driver's just looking to usher in some times on the intermediates just to check all the technicals are okay. No rain expected here in the first session of qualifying, but this enables them to save a compound of tyres. At the same time, when they do get the softs out later into the session, they have some delta to work against. Good time there from Ben Charbot-Cogny in the intermediate side of things. Tamas Gell, though, first appearance to the top on intermediate tyres.
Well, Tamas Gell is the name that we're going to be seeing plenty of this evening, George, because he is very, very strong in qualifying. Of course, the PC F2 champion giving it a run here in F1 this evening. And when I was commentating along that F2 season before making the move up here in PC F1, he was absolutely dominant. It seemed like most weeks he was the quickest driver, and I think he's going to have a good showing here this evening in that Aston Martin himself. And Jack West, actually, the last two PC F2 champions lining up in the Aston Martin. So it's a very nice duo they've got there. Two very young, talented prospects in the F1 esports scene. Very excited to see how they do this evening.
Yeah, absolutely right. Tamas Gell now reeling from being on top at this stage. It's gone all quiet out on track at the moment, folks. So welcome back to PSGL. And I think this is a great chance for us to tout our fantastic and exciting new partnership downfield. We've got to talk about Sim Racing Centre. Big warm welcome to SRC, who have also announced that they have put together an all-star sim racing team. So I want to say a massive congratulations to Jorrit Jan van Heffen, of course, their team boss, who has done such a stellar job with that organisation since it's been brought to the forefront, and they are now part of PSGL. Great to have them here as well, so big shout out to Jorrit for that. But guys, also big warm welcome, whether you're watching us on YouTube or Twitch. Make sure, first of all, if you are watching on YouTube, to hit that subscribe button and the like button as well to stay up to date with PSGL. And also, why not jump across to Twitch too? And also lodge your support by following the channel. We would much appreciate it. Thank you all so much, wherever you're joining us around the world. Great to have you here. Cars now all in the garage. We're just waiting for those drivers to now put the softs on the car and then head out then for Q1, where no doubt we'll see who can survive and stay in the top 15 and make their way into Q2. That is the factor. Now, if you want the standings, folks, they are there. We have got a link there in the live chat where you can get an up-to-date view on the standings coming into this round. So if you want to check them out, there they are, and you can check those out. We haven't got them on the broadcast. We keep them on a database and in a PDF format for you guys to check out. So there we go. But I think what's important to note here, Dan, 3 different races, 3 different winners. How about that?
It's been absolutely sensational to watch PSGL this season, George. And there's been seldom few drivers to actually make it onto the podium twice this season. I believe it's actually the top three drivers in the standings of Thomas Ronhard, Danny Berejnay, and Jarno Opmeer. The only three drivers on this grid who have made their way to the podium in all three races. Twice. Sorry, not all three races. Twice so far this season. No one has been able to complete the triple. It just goes to show how close this PSGL F1 grid is today, and I'm wondering if we're going to see a fourth winner tonight. Who's it going to be? There's a big name, of course, who's not yet won so far this season. It's the defending champion, Jarno Opmeer.
Yeah, he's not the only one either. Plenty of other names that, of course, we're expected to see at the very top. But nonetheless, we have seen some immense battles. I mean, we look back to that Silverstone race, Danfield. I don't think we've quite seen a race quite like that in PSGL. No. Certainly not in recent times. Certainly not in recent seasons. But it was a non-stop onslaught right through the course of the race. We thought qualifying was stellar. It was almost the aperitif to what was a great race. We got underway, plenty, like we said, of overtakes left, right and centre, strategies that were split across, you would say, 3 different categories. And it was fascinating, really, to see where we would come out. In the end, it was the undercut that was successful. It was the brilliance of young Jake Benham who brought it to the forefront and managed to usher in a stellar race. And I'm hoping we get to see something similar tonight. But we all know, with Canada, its challenges, it's got close walls, got a little bit of the street circuitness about it, but it has got its traditions, Danfield.
Yeah, I think it is a very fine line between being a street circuit and being an iconic circuit. And I would definitely class it in the latter part there. Of course, it is actually technically a street circuit because if I'm not mistaken, it's built upon a park in Montreal. You might have to correct me on that one there, but nevertheless, this is a very difficult circuit to get. Looking at Freddie Rasmussen in the first sector, you see this high-speed chicane, how close he gets to the wall on the exit. And in qualifying, George, you have to be as quick as you can through there, so you've got to get as close as you can to that wall without, of course, touching it. And so it's a very fine line that these drivers have to walk along, but Freddie Rasmussen is doing a sensational job at the minute, heading towards now the end of the second sector. Yet another high-speed chicane for these drivers to maneuver. Should make some very interesting battles if they choose to go side by side. Now in towards the hairpin, a big lockup from Freddie there, but all in all, it's looking like a very tidy lap, and now with multiple cars in front of him, could pick up a nice toe.
Yeah, he could well do, coming down the casino straight, and will then usher into the Wall of Champions. Of course, Freddie Rasmussen, so close to being labelled a champion in F1 esports, 4 times consecutively a runner-up. The most consistent driver, you could argue, by saying, as he now crosses the line, a 109.085. Has been decent as well in the start of his PSGL campaign, ushering in though a 109 straight away to see the differential between those on the inters and, of course, those on the softs. There is Philip Prejnader, a welcome return for him. Was back in the Alpine and has arguably been impressive as well. Decent by certainly no means, you know, laying down some really stellar performances. We saw a little bit of it in Britain. Marks a return here once again. Personal bests in the first 2 sectors, but the Wall of Champions can easily turn that upside down here. Otis Lawrence, though, going fastest in the first sector with an 18.9 here, Dan.
Well, we know how quick Otis Lawrence is along qualifying, and he's got that pace in the race. But George, would you believe me if I told you that he has not yet scored a podium so far this season? It's been a big challenge for Otis Lawrence to convert those sensational qualifying performances into meaningful points, as Danny Berejnay crossed the line and is the first driver into the 108s at the minute. We'll see if Otis Lawrence is able to trump him coming up towards the line. What's it going to be for the McLaren Shadow driver? It's only P5 for Otis Lawrence for the time being, as Tamas Gal, there he is, the PCF2 champion, flexing his muscles with a brilliant 108.7.
Yeah, Thomas Ronhard, though, might be on the precipice of perhaps blowing him away. A 21.674 in the second sector is blistering. Could no doubt lay a time down against Tamas Gal. Very close. I say very close, in fact. Just over 1 1/4 tenths. But look at this. Danny Berejnay now lodged out in third. In fact, it is just a tenth separating Ronhard and Gal now in second place. Wasn't able to usher in the purple third sector. Only a personal best in the third sector. But still, purple in the second sector, which did place him in the high extremities of the timing tower. Now, we are looking towards the bottom because Brendan Lee It's currently at the very base of that said timing tower, 19.178 in Sector 1. That is competitive, is in the mix, so 21.8 in the second sector to lay down his first official timed lap, but only enough for 14th fastest, I'd argue, and usher in a statement to say that, shall I say, the Wall of Champions wasn't a good run for him.
No, it really wasn't for Brendan Lee. You could see from an off-board shot how he got a little bit squirrely off the exit of the second part of that corner. So Brendan Lee's going to have to gear up, probably put on a fresh set of boots and go back out in this qualifying session if he wants to make it into Q2. But we'll have to wait and see. Brendan Lee very low down by his standards, but still not too far off some of the very top drivers. Look how many are on a 1 minute 8.9 and a 1 minute 9.0. Very fine margins here in qualifying at the minute. I believe Dylan Warren's just come across the line with a 109.039, adding to that very extensive list of the drivers who have set a 1 minute 9 flat so far. Brendan Lee being pushed into the danger zone. Jack West and Ben Shabakoni, the pair of them have got to get their way up the field as well. We'll have to wait and see as qualifying is coming to an end for Q1.
It is, and it's 8th fastest for last week's winner, Jake Benham, the All-Star now in the top 10. So a very good display so far from him. Now we got some drivers that are currently on the bubble. One of them includes the Flying Dutchman, Jarno Opmeer in 15th place, Brendan Lee 16th, and in the elimination zone. So quite a few names there to just look at and question. We've got at the moment only the small matter of 3 minutes and 50 to go, and it means that there's only one last chance to dance for those in the very bottom end of the spectrum. Now that's AlphaTauri, or should I say the new Visa Cash App Racing Bull car. Joni Tormela looking to make a withdrawal out of the first qualifying session. Sorry for the joke, Dan.
Horrible name. Absolutely horrible. You know what? When I first saw the news, I audibly shouted no, because it's an AlphaTauri in my eyes at the minute. You know what, George? Actually, it's always going to be a Toro Rosso in my heart. But you got to say what's on your screen. Joni Tormela in the AlphaTauri for this evening. Soon enough, it's going to be the Visa Cash App Red Bull. Disgusting name in my opinion, but we'll have to wait and see if Joni Tormela and Tom Manley in the drop zone are able to get their way out of qualifying. Joni Tormela is a driver, George, that I feel like always has some surprises up his sleeve, so we'll have to wait and see if the Finnish driver, the father as he is known as sometimes, I think, we'll see if he's able to get himself out.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Ben Shabakoni currently sat 18th place, the only car out on an outlap at this point. And Jarno Opmeer is going to join him as well. So two cars that are currently in that bottom 5, or should I say, if you want to factor in the car that's on the bubble, that of course being Jarno Opmeer, of course a bottom 6 soiree or a bottom 6 fight. They're going to be trying to usher in a placement into the next session. Now, obviously, one place has been taken up by Wilson Hughes because he will not be setting a time, of course, on a quali ban for this particular race starting from the back. But here we have got Opmeer, Lee, West, Ben Shabakoni, Tom Manley, all fighting to ensure that they're not in the drop zone, and they're not alone. Joni Tormela as well as stepped out, as has Alvaro Caraton. Otis Lawrence all the way down in 12th after faster times have been preceded. And we've got other cars as well, both Alpines out on track. Freddie Rasmussen, Jake Benham, Dylan Warren. Benham still in the pits. Now, I do wonder whether... Is he going to gamble? Is he going to go out? He's still got time to go out, but yes, he is. He's going straight out. So Jake Benham is making his way out onto the track. And now, as we watch, Ben Shabakoni, who's going to struggle, I think, with traffic here.
We'll have to wait and see. Ben Shabakoni making his way onto the start-finish straight to begin his final, potentially last run in qualifying here this evening towards the first couple of corners, where we're going to see plenty of overtaking opportunities. A little bit squirrely off the exit of that first corner, but all looks well as he heads in towards this first sector chicane, where he's going to push the car to the very limits, completely flat out through this right-hander, where of course David Sinitzer and Jarno Opmeer had their very famous desync incident all the way back in 2019. Continuing on towards this next DRS rate, Ben Shabakoni looking decent on this run at the minute. He's got a lot of room to improve on, currently on a 1 minute 10.0, way off a representative lap time for him, and heading in towards the final sector, he's only up by a 10th.
Yeah, he is. Ben Shabakoni now coming through the Epingle hairpin. He's going to be heading straight down now, the Casino Straight. and no doubt try and roll the dice. Benjabo Konyi, who has shown personal improvements in the first two sectors, needs to try and deliver something clinical in this never-ending fight to stay within quali. Certainly here in Q1, he nudges the wall on the right-hand side, but it's not enough to deter the youngster as he now hits the line now. Oh, dearie me, an invalidation heading out to the wall of champions. That crippled him greatly. Janawatmi in the next round across the line. Can he confirm safety? Yes, he can. Fourth place for the Flying Dutchman.
Very nice time from Jarno Opmeer there. The next one up to cross the line, George, will be a man in the drop zone. It's the two-time F1 Esports champion, Brendan Lee, in his Alfa Romeo, but he is improving on his lap at the minute by over a tenth and a half. Once again, nudges the wall off the exit of the wall of champions. Can Brendan Lee secure himself in the next session? It's a good time to get himself out the drop zone, but only 12th, 13th now. Could be danger for Brendan.
It could well be. Otis Lawrence managed to go fourth fastest as well. Freddie Rasmussen right on the bubble. He's improved in Sector 3. As we just saw an AlphaTauri burst on by as well. Joni Tormler not safe at all. Freddie as though. Freddie goes 11th fastest. Fantastic time there from Freddie Rasmussen. Plenty more cars as well ushering their way through, including Philip Prejnader, his teammate Luke Smith in behind as well. Prejnader goes fourth fastest. In comes Luke Smith. Demotes him again. Goes third fastest this time, Luke Smith. Jake Benham on the bubble of 15th place, but he is safe. While we lose Benjabo Konyi along with Wilson Hughes, of course, Jack West, Joni Tormler, Brendan Lee also out of qualifying.
Missing out by just 0.03 of a second to Dylan Warren there. Going to be a bitter disappointment for Brendan Lee. And George, that is two qualifying sessions on the bounce where Brendan Lee has been eliminated in Q1, of course, not getting out of the first session last time out in Silverstone. Unfortunately, his fortunes have not turned here in Canada. Brendan Lee having an early shower. He'll be heading back into the pit lane out of qualifying. We'll see if he's able to do a masterful charge to the front like he did last time out.
Tamashgal fastest by over a tenth at the very top. Outrageous, it has to be said. And he could be one to watch heading into the race. Tell you what, strap yourselves in. Of course, Tamashgal not currently an official driver on the F1 Esports grid at the moment. But if he keeps on ushering in results like this, it could well be another name looking to fight its way onto the grid. Tamashgal sends a Hungarian flag to the top spot with Thomas Ronha in second place. Luke Smith in third. Danny Berejne makes it two Hungarians in the top four. Philip Prejnader in fifth. Otis Lawrence in sixth. Tom Manley in seventh. Jarno Opmeer in eighth. Further down, we have Istvan Pukki, 9th, Ishmael Fassi in 10th, Alvaro Caraton in 11th with Alfie Butcher in 12th. Further down, Jake Benham, the All-Star, in 13th with Frederick Rasmussen 14th. Dylan Warren in 15th. Unfortunately, though, we lose Brendan Lee, Joni Tormler, Jack West, Benjabo Konyi, and, of course, Wilson Hughes, who did not partake in qualifying. But drama already, folks. Again, it continues. It proceeds. But nonetheless, we have got a mouth-watering Q2 up ahead. A great marker to be laid down by Tamashgal, would you say, Dan? First appearance, P1.
I think it's a statement from him that he is the PC F2 champion and he's here to play. It's a fantastic start to his PC F1 debut tonight this season. We'll have to wait and see if he's able to carry that momentum forward when the pressure gets to its highest. Of course, Q1 being the lowest pressure situation that these drivers are going to be in all evening tonight, George. It means Tamashgal maybe still has to prove himself on the grandest stage, but George, he is in a fantastic position at the moment to continue along with his strength. So good luck to Tamashgal. Good luck to the rest of the drivers in this field. There's one man that won't be competing in it, which I think definitely we expect to see in the next session. Brendan Lee knocked out for the second week running.
Absolutely. What a shocker that was, by the way. I mean, he's really had a rough time lately in qualifying, but, you know, at the end of the day, you can only go one way, you could argue. It's got to be forward, and Brendan Lee is someone who has done that who's done that time and time again. For those of you at home wondering if I'm reading the chat, yes, I am. I can see. I've got the combined chat for both YouTube and Twitch, so a big warm welcome if you're tuning in. Let us know which drivers you are supporting. It's great to have you all with us and along for the ride as well. We've got a very exhilarating and very awe-inspiring Q2 ahead of us. I think in the next 13 and 40 seconds, we're going to be in for a real treat, and it's going to be great. We're currently watching Ismail Fassi making his way around the track, but looking on my screen is the man in P10, Dylan Warren, who's currently making his way around first. He'll be the first man to lay down a lap time. Impressed with him in Q1, Dan, again showing his pace. This is a young kid, by all intents and purposes, I think eventually does deserve his chance in an official F1 esports seat.
I would love to see Dylan Warren find his way into the F1 esports scene at one point. He's someone that I've known for a very long time, almost, I think, as long as I've been a part of the league racing community. Dylan Warren is a driver that I have known, so it'd be very, very nice to see him finally make his way into the F1 esports scene. He's been grinding for a very long time. Unfortunately, he's just invalidated on his banker time here this evening, so very unfortunate that is not gone his way thus far, but nevertheless, I don't think it's going to deter him. He just about survived in Q1.
Invalidated.
It's a blank slate. Yeah, he's invalidated already.
Yeah, bad news, unfortunately, if you are Dylan Warren, invalidating the 19.125. Purple now has been taken, well, it was taken by Ismail Fassi. It was floating around with Carrot on as well, but Alfie Butcher has immediately stomped on that. Tom Manley, however, who we're currently watching on our screen, is the next car behind Dylan Warren to usher in his time. Not a very good start for Warren whatsoever, as we now see them make their way out the Epingle hairpin and heading down the back straight at Casino. And then they'll venture through towards the Wall of Champions. And still holding on to the purple second sector is Tom Manley. Invalidations as well for Jake Benham, so he's not having a great ride so far either, as now Tom Manley heads up towards the line. What can he marshal in to get his Q2 started at 108.999? Already, should we say, an improvement to what we saw in our previous session. We will see more cars cross, but Alfie Butcher, of course, nestling in that purple first sector, could be the one to topple Alvaro Carreton at this stage. Doesn't quite do it. We do have others, though, coming through. Philip Presneder, who was going fastest. We also have the young Welsh upstart Otis Lawrence. Thomas Ronar going fastest, but Lawrence will trump him after claiming that purple second sector. Absolutely stellar on his part with Jarno Opmeer, who now steals the fastest time, ushering in a purple third sector. The Wall of Champions was key, and he was a 10th quicker than Otis through the Wall of Champions as well, Dan.
Seems like Jarno Opmeer is having a decent time in qualifying as of late. Of course, finding his way into Q3 last time out and fighting near the very top for most of the race, and now leading the way in Q2 with 11 minutes to go in this session. It seems to be looking up for the Flying Dutchman. Really do hope that tonight is the night where he's finally able to capture his first victory of this season. Of course, the defending champion at the moment, George. He needs that win on the board soon, and I think Canada tonight can be the night.
Yeah, we all know, of course, that Jarno Opmeer, a multi-time champion, looking to make it 5 in the PC F1 Championship as well. Was the original champion as well, was Jarno, and be looking to do exactly the same again. Of course, also a winner on the PlayStation platform. He's already arguably a 5-time champ, but would love to do it once again, this time on the PC platform. And one of the most ruthless competitors you'll ever meet. And no doubt will be looking to chase bigger dreams as well in the F1 Esports Championship. There's never been a driver in F1 Esports to lose the crown in F1 Esports and take it back. Of course, Brendan Lee and Jarno both owning 2 world titles in F1 Esports. Both still looking to chase that championship back again. But based on the form that we're seeing right now, I'd argue it's siding more with Jarno Opmeer than it is with Brendan Lee.
Absolutely, of course. Jarno Opmeer, he seemingly is having a great F1 23, of course, winning the championship early on in PSGL, earlier on this year, sorry. You know what happens, George, when someone wins at PSGL F1 at the beginning of a new game cycle. They find their way to the very top of the F1 esports scene, so maybe Jarno Opmeer is looking for his 3rd title in this coming F1 Esports series when it, of course, hits our screen once again. But a name that I'd love to see back at the top is someone who's just come out onto the circuit, Danny Berejnay, one of the best team players of all time, of course, being teammates with Brendan Lee throughout his 2018 title campaign, and then, of course, winning the Constructors' Championship with Jarno Opmeer in 2019, of course, when 2020, I believe it was, when Jarno Opmeer took his first title. It's a very experienced driver who has not yet captured the glory, which I think he so does deserve.
Yeah, I think so. Danny Berejnay, who has always been, should we say, the bridesmaid, never quite the bride, has been part of a team outfit. Of course, remember, teammate with Brendan Lee when he won his title with Mercedes. He was then alongside Jarno Opmeer for when he won his title at Sauber. And now at this point, he is now back with Jarno Opmeer, this time at Mercedes. Almost poetic, really, when you think about it. But I'm sure Berejnay would prefer his name to be on the title because, of course, he has always been there time and time again, but has yet to taste victory at the highest level in terms of winning a championship crown. Of course, though, historically, a league racing icon and has been successful all the way back in AOR, back in its heyday, back in late, should we say in the late 2010s, where of course he would be one of those title successes in 2019 as well as in 2018, of course, for Brendan Lee time and time again. Prior to Brendan Lee winning his very first esports title, Danny has done it all and is now back again, this time in PSGL, where he's going to look to try and retake his place at the top of league racing. Of course, maybe a teammate alongside Freddie Rasmussen in the Red Bull. In league racing, they are far from teammates in real life, folks. We all know Danny is a Mercedes driver, just due to mere numbers. Of course, it does mean that Berejnay has to take up the Red Bull livery, with Benham and Opmeer occupying the Mercedes. As now Berejnay makes his way through the first sector, looking pretty strong, 19.03.73, but he's lost the purple sector at the bequest of Alvaro Carreton.
Absolutely, Alvaro Carreton, a driver, very experienced, and he's very much been a one-team man, a part of the Williams scheme, and it's great to see him still fighting at the very top of F1 esports after all these years. I think it was 2018 was when Alvaro Carreton made his debut. He's improving very nicely in the second sector, almost up by 2/10 at the minute. This is to be expected, of course. Typically, drivers like to do. Wow, Danny Berejnay to line a fantastic lap from him, a 1 minute 8.595. We'll see if Alvaro Carreton is going to be able to trump that in the final sector now, heading towards the Wall of Champions. The Spaniard up by a decent amount, but I'm not too sure if it's going to be enough to contend with Danny Berejnay. Nice time there from Tamas Gal to get himself up into second position. Here comes Alvaro Carreton, lost time in that final sector, and I believe found an invalidation.
He did. He invalidated coming out of the middle sector into the third sector. I think it might have actually been at the Wall of Champions where he might have lost it. This Van Pookie currently in the drop zone. His Ferrari teammate Dylan Warren, 7th fastest. Here comes Pookie, showing green in the first two, goes second fastest, just in behind Danny Berejnay. And the gap currently occupied with Tamas Gal in between he and Pookie. Guess how much it is, Danfield?
I'm not too sure. Honestly.
5 thousandths of a second between Ps2 and 3. Outrageous times. And just goes to show how pacey these guys are. There is, though, a slightly larger gap to Danny Berejnay up front. He's had a very good start here to Q2.
Yeah, Danny Berejnay looking very strong at the minute in qualifying. Of course, was second, I believe, in our very first race in qualifying, of course, at Portimao. Went on to win that race, so maybe a good qualifying from him tonight could put him in some strong stead to potentially take victory here this evening. Good to see that Istvan Pookie has found his way in to P2, of course, ending up getting some wing damage at the beginning of this session, so I don't believe he was able to put a banker lap on, but he was able to come back into the pits, George, then fit on a nice fresh front wing for him there. He's been able now to set a very nice time in towards P2, but we're coming towards the end of this session. A name that I'm not very used to seeing towards the bottom of the order. Thomas Ronhaar, only 10th position on 108.862, on the cusp of being eliminated. We'll see what happens if our championship leader is able to make his way up the order. But with that being said, actually, he is up on his time, I believe, and coming up towards the line. Thomas Ronhaar, there it is. That's more like it, into P6 and up ahead of Freddie Rasmussen now.
Yeah, I think obviously credit to Thomas Ronhaar managing to recover in that last dying moments of this particular stint. They will of course have one extra stint to take, which you'd imagine pretty much all of the drivers will take. Butcher did cross the line as well and usher in a 14th place time of 108.943, but I think had some issues on his outward run and will no doubt be looking to try and go again. 4 minutes still to go here in Q2, sorry, to get qualification to Q3. Top 10 will go ahead and make it through. Bottom 5 will be eliminated. At the moment, that is, of course, Dylan Warren, Alvaro Carreton, Luke Smith, Alfie Butcher and Tom Manley. Let us know who you're supporting, folks. Again, I just want to hear from you guys, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitch. We do want to of course, have more interaction with yourselves as well. Let us know who you think is going to be successful. Who are you backing? Who are you supporting? I'm already seeing also Rico saying, Ronhar, my GOAT. I can see plenty of you on Twitch. Welcome, everybody. And it's great to have this brand new broadcasting platform available to us. Visual27 saying he's supporting Benham. Warm welcome to you as well, Visual, on Twitch. Thank you to each and every single one of you, wherever you're watching in the world. Thank you for tuning in. We're looking at a Hungarian. Nikki's looking for a Hungarian 1, 2, and 3. Could you believe that?
Well, it's a 1, 2, and 3 right now for them.
Yeah.
Danny Verjne, Istvan Puki, Tamás Gal, all Hungarian drivers. George, for some reason, seems like Hungary might be one of the best regions or best countries for league racing talent. That and the Netherlands, I feel like, have all got the best drivers for whatever reason. I mean, fair play to all of them. They're doing a fantastic job at the minute, but it's just really weird to see that all three of them, of course, leading the way in qualifying. The only drivers who've got a sub 1 minute 8.7 at the minute, of course, being in the 1 minute 8.6s and 5s. Those two at the top retiring from this session, believing that they are safe with 2.5 minutes left to go. God, I'm inclined to agree with them, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at quite a few of the YouTube viewers as well, saying, George, I want the Butcher to GOAT, says Alfie loves F1. You never know. We could be seeing some wizardry from the young Alfie Butcher. He's going to need something in the meantime now. Currently sat 14th. Needs to try and raise the stakes and get out of the bottom 5. Seeing more, we got an Opmia fan from Mozambique. Big hello to those in Mozambique as well. And yeah, it's a pleasure to have people all across the world. Otis for the win, I'm seeing, says Richard Beckett. We have got Dylan the Dark Horse here. Could well be Paul. Plenty of you. Just keep getting involved, guys. We want to hear from you. Spam the emojis as well. We want to see some emojis at play. Let us know who your favourite drivers are. Share those emojis. Show those Ws. Show it all. Use the chat. It's at your disposal. Let's get ready for qualifying. Jake Benham about to go on his outlap, and he needs a big time because he's only in 9th place, Dan.
Yeah, Jake Benham was the last driver out last at the end of the last session. He seems like he's want to come out a little bit earlier here at the end of Q2. We'll have to wait and see how Jake Benham gets along, because he's been driving on very thin ice so far this evening, just about surviving in Q1, and now is on the fringes of being eliminated at the end of Q2. Our winner from last week, looking to go 2 for 2 in the last 2 races. Can he win tonight, this evening? We'll have to wait and see, but qualifying certainly is the way to get it started. Getting himself into Q3 is going to be absolutely imperative to trying to take victory in this race. Of course, he won from 6th position on the grid last time out. Maybe he could be a little bit higher here this evening. He's looking very strong at the minute on this lap, heading down the 2nd DRS straight. And George, I love how many of them there are along this circuit. Should make some beautiful overtaking opportunities.
Absolutely right. Coming out of turns 8 and turns 9, the Epingle hairpin coming up at turn 10. You need to make sure you prime your braking point. It's one of the hardest braking zones here at this stage. Very easy to lock the tyres, lock the brakes. But here this time for Jake Benham, no qualms at all. He'll have DRS heading down the back straight. What I will say is this, though. Alvaro Caraton, purple, in Sector 1 with an 18.987. That is absolutely stellar from the Spaniard, as he's now making his way through the wall of champions. Jake Benham a little squirrely on exit. Has that cost him any time at all as he crumbs across the line? It did, unfortunately for Benham, losing out viciously at that point. Many of the cars coming across, including Otis Lawrence as well as Alvaro Caraton, though Luke Smith has stolen that purple first sector, Danfield.
And now Tamás Gal gets his way up into 2nd position. Here comes Alvaro Caraton to the line, banging the final nail into Jake Benham's coffin out of this qualifying session for our winner from last week. A few more drivers now in the final sector. Ishmael Fassi has made his way up into P4. Here comes Freddie Rasmussen on the verge of being eliminated. He's secured his way into the next session. What about Thomas Ronhar? Invalid on his lap, George. And Philip Presneder finds a decent improvement, but wasn't able to get up the order. What about about Luke Smith to the line, eliminating Thomas Ronhaar from this session.
Jana Watmir also invalidating, but nevertheless, he's okay. Someone who's just pulled up some slipstream, though, is Dylan Warren late in the day. Can Dylan Warren cause a stir with a last gasp lap that could yet bring him to Q3? He does!
Wow.
Goodness me, where did he pull that from? Dylan Warren, at the very death where he needed it the most, has managed to pull off an absolutely blistering 27.977, utilising the toe off the Flying Dutchman, and the Ferrari is now into Q3.
And how about that a gap from 10th to 11th, 1,000th of a second separating Luke Smith and Alvaro Carreton, and it's the latter driver to be eliminated from this qualifying session, along with Thomas Ronhaar, Jake Benham, Philip Presnader, and Tom Manley. Some big names, some heavy hitters, George, eliminated from this session.
Some real big heavy hitters have indeed been removed, and we'll diagnose it for you folks when we take a look at the table. Look at this. Danny Berejnay, though, back to the top. It's a double Hungarian lockout in the top two in Q2. We've got Alfie Butcher then. What a recovery. Third place here at the end of the session with Ismail Fassi. Fourth, Istvan Pukki making it yet another Hungarian, making it through to Q3. They are mightily strong. Here are the Hungarian fraternity. We've also got Freddie Rasmussen, Dylan Warren. That clutch lap puts him just outside a tenth of a second away from the top. Jana Watmir, who gave him that toe, 8th fastest. Otis Lawrence in 9th. The Welshman making it through at the very end. Luke Smith in 10th place for that clutch lap as well. We're going to lose Carreton, Ronhaar, Benham, Presnader and Manley. Devastating scenes here, Dan. Some major names out of qualifying.
And some incredibly fine margins throughout the entire grid, George. The entire field was separated by less than 3 tenths. This is the kind of qualifying performances that Canada can bring because it is just so close. I mean, it's such a short circuit where there's not really that many opportunities for you to make mistakes. Of course, as well, so many long DRS straights as well. So really, there's not much time to lose there. So that is why we are seeing such fine margins at the very pinnacle of league racing tonight. The very best 10 in this qualifying session of the grid have made their way now into Q3. They're all going to do battle to find out who takes pole position. But George, I gotta say, one of the best qualifiers on this grid, Thomas Ronhaar, being eliminated in Q2 could open the door for someone new potentially to be on pole position.
Absolutely right indeed. I want to say a big shout out as well. Big hello to Andrew Hornigold, shall I say. Thank you for joining us here as well. I did see a question earlier on questioning my waistcoat and why I don't change it. This is PSGL blue, everybody. I wear PSGL blue for that reason. And this isn't a blue screen behind me. This is LED lighting. You know, I always try and make an effort for you guys at home. Lighting, waistcoat, PSGL is blue. So there we are. That's the reason I wear it. I've got a plethora of waistcoats in there. I'm just trying to stay on train, guys. I'm trying to stay toned in. Brilliant to see it. As now we see the drivers making their way around in Q3. Now, this is the point of the broadcast where I want to hear from you guys as well. Let us know in the live chat. Who do you think is going to get pole, folks? I want to hear from you guys. Let us know in the live chat your selections for this absolutely sensational Q3 we have in the offing. Freddie Rasmussen, Jana Watmir, Istvan Pukki, Danny Berejnay, Otis Lawrence, Ismail Fassi, Dylan Warren, Luke Smith, Tamas Gal, Alfie Butcher. Let us know, folks. We want to hear from you. Who's taking pole? Over to you, Danfield. Who do you think is going to get it?
It's a tough one considering how up and down this qualifying session has been so far, George. But you know what? I'm an F2 head at heart. Of course, I've been commentating there since the very beginning of PC when they came in season 29. So I'm going to go with Tamas Gal, the rookie on the grid tonight, to take pole position.
Well, there we go. And we've got plenty of the fans who are watching on in the live chat. We've got Alfie for pole, says Mad Luke. We've got Mercedes12, says Rad Halim. Danny Berejnay has been a selection as well. The Flying Dutchman, again, another head tilt. Also another vote for Tamas Gal, says Viperize. That's an interesting one. So great to see Tamas Gal getting some notoriety too. First appearance in Q3. That is quite something here, Dan, especially against a grid like this. Otis Lawrence getting a head tilt from Zeta Infinite, as well as Jarno saying from that Bacon as well. Frederick Rasmussen gets a nod from Zib. We got Paco Chin saying as well, giving us his input. Guys, keep it coming. Even Matt Gallagher has got a vote for pole as well from Dakar. He's not racing, unfortunately, guys, but nevertheless, great to see him in the chat. But Danny Berejnay, purple in Sector 2, 21.587. Of course, he's the first car to cross that sector point, so no doubt that could yet be beaten. His first sector time was beaten by only a hair's breadth margin, though, as he now heads up towards the line. I can tell you this, that Jarno Watmir has gone fastest in the first sector, as Danny Berejnay ushers in a 108.573. Jarno comes across the line at 108.653. Cannot quite topple his Mercedes teammate, but nevertheless a good display. Dylan Warren now out on track, has just gone green in the first sector, but has still got an awful long way to go. Plenty of cars though on their outlaps here, Dan.
Yep, absolutely. Still a long way to go in Q3. Dylan Warren seems to be the only driver on a fast run at the minute, coming towards the end of the second sector. And he's looking pretty decent, a 40.950 for Dylan Warren. Now approaching the casino straight, where we're going to see some of the fastest speeds that a Formula 1 car can go. Dylan Warren opening up the DRS and keeping his foot flat to the floor. We'll see what he's able to do as he comes to the end of this lap. I'm going to have a look at his top speed on the telemetry. It's going to be 324 kilometers per hour at the braking zone for Dylan Warren. Monstrous speeds in these modern day Formula 1 cars. It's a disappointing 109.266 for Dylan Warren. I believe that might be on a used set of tyres, but he's still got 7 minutes left to go in this session to strap on a fresh set of boots and go once again in qualifying.
Yeah, I think there could be a good chance that he might be using a fresh set of, well, should I say an old set of tyres, and I don't think he'll be alone in doing that for the initial stint in Q3. Of course, you don't want to use all your brand new sets at once. Tend to leave it for when the track is at optimal temperature. We're currently watching Istvan Pukki as well, Dylan Warren's teammate, making his way around the track as he now comes through turns 6 and 7. And you'll have another chicane coming up after this as well at turns 8 and 9. Tamas Gal just beginning his lap as well in the Aston Martin. And this is the youngster that has been causing quite the stir already in qualifying. Remember, of course, fastest of anybody in the first session and secured safety out of Q2 as well. And this time in Q3 in the battle for pole. And let's see if he can really uproot everyone else in this session by going fastest of anybody this time around as well. Coming in towards the next chicane at turns 8 and 9. Not afraid to really put his foot down here is young Tamas Gal, and has really proven himself over the course of months and has been part of the race clutch outfit historically too. Now back again and in the mean green colours of the Aston Martin. Of course, we've seen green time and time again in Formula 1, including that of Lotus and Caterham, being one of the few, Brabham in the past as well. This time it's the turn of Aston Martin to bring the mean green machine to Formula 1. Tamas Gal behind the wheel of this particular one, heads up towards the line. What's it going to be to kick us off? Third fastest, not quite enough to perturb anyone further up. Ismail Fassi, though, looking strong, as is Luke Smith. Purple in the first sector here. And he's now making his way down this back straight. But we got Ismail Fassi crossing the line now, Dan.
Yeah, we'll see Ismail Fassi up towards the line, quickest of them all. The first 1 minute 8.4 of the session here this evening. Luke Smith, a disappointing end to his lap there. Ismail Fassi making his season debut last time out in Silverstone. Great to see him at the top of qualifying. He's having a fantastic season in WOR, and I really do hope that he can sort of replicate that here tonight in PSGL F1. We've also got Istvan Pukki on a run at the moment in his Ferrari car, appearing purple on the track map. George, I've not got your team telemetry. That might not be true for Istvan Pukki, but he is certainly on a quick run at the moment. Heading now in towards the final few corners. The Wall of Champions, which has caught out so many drivers so far this evening, and he's invalidated off the exit of that final turn. He comes across the line. That would have been good enough for P2. That's going to be a bitter invalidation for Istvan Pukki.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, and I'm afraid on his part. I will say this though, Danny Berejnay, alluding back to that purple sector 2 time, he's just begun his fast lap, and he still holds the purple second sector at this stage. So it's Danny Berejnay who's now heading through towards turns 8 and 9. He's not alone. Jarno Watmir is also making his way around, but is unfortunately invalidated in sector 1. So this does cause a little bit of a problem for Jarno, which means that he's only going to have one more chance to usher in the fastest lap. So it could well be that the die is cast against him. Danny Berejnay once again going purple in sector 2 this time. And now making his way down the casino straight out of the Epingle hairpin. Heading down in towards the tricky right and left with a giant wall against it. The Wall of Champions. The imposing Wall of Champions as well as we all know it, coming out of turn 14 and turns 15 as well. Out of the section, across the line, only enough for second fastest behind Ismail Fassi, and despite Fassi not taking that purple second sector, he has managed to find a crucial 59 thousandths to hold on to the top time.
That's a very nice lap from Ismail Fassi, and it's going to be very difficult for these guys to beat it so far for the rest of this session. But now, George, these final runs is where we're going to see the absolute fastest drivers, the absolute fastest that all these drivers are going to go here this evening. This is the time, if you haven't already, to make your predictions. Hopefully we can get a poll up in the YouTube live chat, and maybe, if it's possible, in the Twitch chat. I know there's some sort of function where you can make a poll. I want to see everyone who they're voting for out of the top drivers to take pole position. George, I'm not too sure if anyone's going to be able to trump Fassi at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, anyone could, but at this point, we might have seen plenty of drivers occupying a used set of tyres. Alfie Butcher not wasting any time. He's going straight out here at this stage. Outlap now on the table for young Alfie Butcher. Currently fourth fastest. Don't forget as well, the F1 Esports Challengers champion. And was absolutely dominant that season and well worthy of his seat at Haas. And Haas, incidentally, going for, should we say, a strategy in acquiring drivers. They went for the Challengers champion, but also one of the most dynamic performers in Challengers as well, being Ulash Azildarim, who is, of course, not competing here at this point in Q3, but I'm sure we'll see him back again in the future. Alfie Butcher has been certainly a stellar character in league racing and has proven himself time and time again to be one of the fastest contenders in the world in F1 Esports. And now back again after taking Challengers by storm. He returned strongly at Bahrain in F1 Esports and has been certainly a stellar figure in PSGL this season, picking up third place at Britain last time out with Jake Benham taking the victory. But it's going to be he that leads them as they make their way onto their fast runs very soon. Can Alfie Butcher take pole? Let us know in the live chat who you're backing. It's now or never. The final laps are now approaching.
Yep, and I'm not changing my prediction. I'm still going to go with Tamas Gal, but it's going to be very difficult to beat Ismail Fassi in this session. George, we now have all 10 drivers out on circuit at the minute, all fighting for the very same thing, starting with top honours here in Canada. It is one of the Ferraris. It is Dylan Warren to get the first lap underway. It's an invalidation on his outlap. I was hoping that it wasn't at the final corner, and then he would have got himself a this lap and next lap invalidation. But no, he's going to be able to start his final run in qualifying. But it's actually Alfie Butcher that's ahead. Sorry about that one there.
Alfie Butcher now heading through, and it's currently purple as well in the first sector. Looking strong, Alfie Butcher. The question is, can he make the second sector as strong as the first? Comes through the second chicane in this back section. 8 and 9 now accomplished. He's now got the trickier Pingle hairpin with a little bit of traffic in amongst it as well. Now, what I will say is this. There are green sector times flittering. Jarno Opmeer going very fast in the first sector, and 18.9. Not quite enough for purple, but still enough to really declare his speed. And we all know the Wall of Champions can be the difference maker. A 21.6 in the second sector for Alfie Butcher. The Wall of Champions could yet usher in a brilliant time for the young man in the Haas. Can he go to the top? No! Second fastest. Can't strip it away from Ismail Fassi. But hold your horses. Otis Lawrence purple in the first sector. Tamas Gal purple in the second.
Yeah, Tamas Gal's coming through the final few corners at the minute. We'll see if he is able to contend for pole position. Meanwhile, the defending champion, Jarno Opmeer, is going to be next up to cross the line. What can Jarno do? He gets himself onto the second row of the grid, but not enough to trump either Ismail Fassi or Alfie Butcher. What about Tamas Gal now as he heads through the final few corners, up by 0.2 of a second in sector 1 and 2. He comes to the line. What a 1.332, and that's provisional pole for him there.
The newbie now strikes gold here in Q3, but can he hold on to it? Because here comes, oh no, Otis is invalidated. No, he was the fastest man in the second sector, but he's had it ripped away from him at the Wall of Champions. It is now down to Luke Smith, who is purple in sector 1, an 18.896, followed up with a 21.565. The Alpine driver who knows how to pull off a clutch performance. He's going to try and do it again here at Montreal. Is it going to be a stellar lap here? here for Luke Smith. Goes to the... No, he can't. Third fastest, but Dylan Warren's back, and he has set a purple second sector time, and here, now, cruising down the casino straight.
He'll be one of the last drivers to get a lap on the board. Danny Berejnay was invalid on a time that would have been good enough to go within a 100th of Tamas Gal there. What about Dylan Warren to the line? A 108.565, only good enough for 7th on the grid. Jarno Opmeer coming into the pit lane, and that is the end of qualifying. How about that? Your PC F2 champion making his debut this season, George, and he's on pole position in his very first race. If that's not a statement, I don't know what is.
It's him again, Tamas Gal. After going fastest in Q1, he is fastest in Q3. It's Tamas Gal. The GOAT Gal, he is on top and ahead of Ismail Fassi, who joins him on the front row. Luke Smith, despite ushering in purple in that first sector on that final run, only enough for a 108.437. But the Aston Martin prevails and has now secured a place on pole position. And I've got to say, what a statement to make in your first ever appearance in PC F1 action, certainly at this level, and goes faster than Ismail Fassi by over a whole 10th of a second. That is absolutely sensational. A 108.332. Ismail Fassi in second place. Luke Smith in third. Alfie Butcher in fourth, with Jarno Opmeer in fifth. Danny Berejnay in sixth. Dylan Warren in seventh. Freddie Rasmussen in eighth. Otis Lawrence ninth. Istvan Pukki in 10th place. So there you go, folks. Absolutely outrageous scenes here already here at PSGL. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back, folks, in what has been an absolutely outrageous performance. Tamas Gal in his first ever appearance in PSGL PCF1. Here at this point, I mean, superlatives. Where can we pinpoint them? I mean, Dan Field, F2 champion, now follows it up with a debut appearance here in PCF1. I mean, there are very few ways to really announce your arrival, but one of the best ways to do it is to take pole position. Listen, I mean, where can this go? I mean, this is a youngster. We've spoken about how great the new young talents are coming through at the moment. We've looked at your Otis Lawrence's. Thomas Ronhaar has already made it pretty much to the front end and has put himself in championship equations. This is another new face, Tamas Gal, who could yet tilt something in his favour here at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's a very exciting story to watch. Tamas Gal, you know, coming to the top. It's fantastic to see. He's a very likable guy. He's a great driver. Of course, he worked very hard, I believe, as the F2 coordinator last season. So Tamas Gal being at the front, I think is going to be to the complaints of absolutely no one. He's a fantastic driver in his own right. But there is one thing about him, George, and that is qualifying by far is his strongest suit, and normally he's able to qualify at the very top in F2 and cruise to a win, but when he gets behind, it can become very difficult for Tamas Gal to fight his way to the front. So we'll have to wait and see. If he loses positions early on, it might be a bad race for him. It's going to be very, very difficult. Qualifying is completely different from the race, so we'll have to wait and see if Tamas Gal is going to be able to cope with the pressures of an F1 race.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be intriguing, isn't it, to see whether he can carry this through. I mean, you allude to his really potent quali pace. He's almost the anti-Jarno Opmeer in the sense that Opmeer is stronger in the race as opposed to qualifying. So you've got two drivers at opposite ends of the spectrum. Of course, we all know about Jarno Opmeer's prudency to being a current F1 esports great, and obviously someone who has been there, done it, has got the T-shirt. I mean, here now, as we now venture into yet another era of racing, certainly now in the early stages of this season in PSGL in season 35-36, we are seeing more of these new young faces come through. I mean, this is a great start for Tamas Gal. Obviously, quali pace, yes. Race pace may need work, but to put that into practice in a grid such as this it doesn't get much better than that, does it not?
No, absolutely, and he's got a lot of time to get better. If I'm not mistaken, PSGL is only 17 years old, so he's got a lot of time before he can really develop into that perfect driver that he has the potential to be, and I'm here to watch that for him. So very excited to see what PSGL can do in this race tonight. But Canada, it's new territory for a lot of drivers. It's well, for a lot of drivers, they've all driven this circuit, of course, but at the highest level, it's a track we seldom see, George. We don't see Canada really at all in the F1 esports scene. It's our very first time coming to Canada here in PCF1, so we'll have to wait and see who is going to lay claim to these undriven streets here in PSGL F1.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I've got my notes in front of me here, folks, and do you know what? In the 3 years I've commentated PCF1, pretty much nearly 3 years, I should say. It's amazing to see that we have never been to this track. So we are making history in a sense, in many ways, not just the fact that we are debuting here on Twitch for the very first time, but also the fact that we are here at this circuit for the very first time in this series. So yeah, major question marks, obviously, as to who's going to come out on top in this one. I mean, Jarno has history at this track. We alluded, obviously, to that moment with David Tunitsa back in F1 Esports in 2019. I think it was 2019 anyway, when, of course, he went to win the title, did Tunitsa. But, you know, again, overtaking isn't the easiest here, Dan. We've obviously alluded to the close walls, the chicanes that are obviously oh so tight. If you are Sauber right now, and of course we saw Brendan Lee get eliminated in Q1, Thomas Ronhaar eliminated in Q2, this really puts you on the back foot heading into a race such as this, and surely this means they've got to do something in the pit stop phase here. Yeah, strategy is so volatile on this game, which I think makes it a lot easier for these drivers to actually make charges up through the field. In particular, those Alfa Romeo drivers of Thomas Ronhaar and Brendan Lee, they have made strategies work so far this season. Of course, you remember last week, the pair of them eliminated in Q1 came home for two very strong finishes. I remember Brendan Lee, he was pretty high up the order at one point. I'm not too sure, George. Honestly, that race completely out of my mind because of just how much actually happened in Silverstone, but I do remember Brendan Lee coming up towards the front of the order, and of course in Portimao he was able to qualify outside the top 10, I think, or lower towards the end of the top 10, and was able to fight his way up to second. So I think strategy is a very strong point for Brendan Lee and Thomas Ronhaar, and that is going to take around here, and that is just due to how tight this circuit can actually be. Should make some very fun racing though once we do see drivers decide to go side by side. Yeah, unfortunately Discord again not being your friend again, Dan. But don't fear. We're going to take a very quick commercial break again, and by the time we come back, hopefully we'll be somewhere close to racing action. So don't go away, folks. Well, welcome back, folks. As once again, PSGL back here for another stellar round, this time at Canada. And after two mystery tracks, we've now got two tracks that we have enlisted on the calendar. Of course, we just had Britain, and we're now about to get started here at Canada as well. And given the fact it's been a very, very exuberant season, probably one of the most competitive times to be an F1 esports driver, we've got to look at some of the names as well that are striking themselves up at the top of things too. We've got to talk about Dylan Warren really as well, Dan, because of course when we consider what he could have achieved in Q3, I mean, he's come back in Q1, Q2, very successful. That well-timed lap and the well-timed bit of slipstream that he managed to pick up off Jarno Opmeer to recover after, should I say, not necessarily a brilliant second sector, but the third sector was vital in Q2. And again, he was unlucky in Q3 with a screen freeze heading up through towards the Wall of Champions. So yeah, he had a potential stellar result, you know, ripped away from him, I should say.
It was right on the line. I've seen the Twitch clip from Yona Martins in the PSGL, in the F1 chat on Discord, right on the line. He got a screen freeze and it put him back from second in towards second into seventh, I believe it was. It's just so unlucky, honestly. Dylan Warren, he's got bags of pace and he's really made a comeback, I think, on this F1 23 game. He had a bit of a dip on F1 21 and 22, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, 2020 was when he really burst onto the PC scene, but he's definitely made a comeback here in F1. In F1 in F1 23. So I'm losing my mind, George, honestly. I'm losing it at this point. But Dylan Warren is a name I'm very happy to see doing well. Shame about the disappointing end to qualifying with the bad luck. But I think he's got nothing to worry about. He'll find his way to the front.
I'm sure he will. He's definitely, successful enough in his own right. He's brought himself to the forefront on many an occasion. We're now awaiting the drivers to go to the circuit now, guys. We have got the lobby loading up. We don't know the weather just yet. That will, of course, become a factor later on. We will keep you up to date with what the telemetry's saying as we make our way through the race. But nevertheless, we are racing here at Canada. And for the very first time in PSGL PC F1 action, we have been racing since season 27, which is unbelievable to think now. We're at season 35/36. Of course, there's some skippages in the middle, just due to the fact of when the game's released, things of that nature. And certainly as we run up against the PS Championship too. Lots has changed at PSGL. It's grown massively. And we want to say a big thank you to GT Omega for being proud partners and sponsors of this championship, as well as Sim Racing Centre. Big thank you to them as well for becoming our new proud sponsor and partner as part of this mega series that we have and have been bringing now for quite a few years, and has been around now since well over 10 years ago. In fact, I think 12 years that this has been brought to the forefront in league racing, and PSGL delivering on the PlayStation platform has now since seen a successful run on PC since season 27. So we want to thank each and every single one of you for your support. It really is appreciated. We're about to get underway in Canada. Now, I want to ask each and every single one of you in the live chat as to who you think is going to win this one. Please let us know who your selections are to win the race here at the Canadian Grand Prix here for round 4 at PSGL. Danfield, who's going to take it?
I have to get off the fence. I wish I could sit there, honestly, all race, because it's so difficult to decide who takes victory. I'm not going to go with Tamas Gao. I'm going to say Danny Berejnay will take his second win of the season.
Well, there we go. Danny Berejnay to take his second win. We've yet to have a driver take a second win this season so far. We've had 3 different winners here this campaign. And I tell you what, we could yet see a 4th different one as well. Lots of question marks. We've got plenty of names being picked up in the live chat. Mikael Gillison saying Otmir is his selection. Let us know. We got Yatin Panguru as well saying Yarno. Debut win for Gal, says Matthew Kerr, as we now get set to go racing, this time at Canada. And it's pedal to the metal. And it is go, 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 go. And straight away at the get-go, Tamas Gao leads the way. But side by side, Ismail Fassi testing him. We'll have the inside from the outside, heading out of turn 2. Out of Rivage Senna in towards turn 3 as well. They'll remain wheel to wheel. But Fassi now takes P1 away from Tamas Gao, who's removed under second. Yarno Otmir moving past Luke Smith for 3rd. The top 3 now decided as they now peel through turn 6 and 7.
Brilliant start from Ismail Fassi there on his set of the soft compound of tyres. That's why he's been able to get such a great jump on Tamas Gao, who started on the mediums. Most of the field is running the hard compound of tyre. We'll have to wait and see how this strategy pans out. But now heading in towards the 3rd sector for the first time in this race, Ismail Fassi with the dream getaway ahead of Tamas Gao, and he'll lead this race from lap 1.
Yeah, Alvaro Caraton now also looking to make the jump up to 10th. Moves alongside Istvan Pukki. Can he get the move done? No. Still in the midst of fighting, but now the Williams has managed to successfully do it. Look at this, Red Bull into play. I wouldn't bet you. I wouldn't bet on it. I can tell you between these two. Freddie Rasmussen, of course, remember, a solid Red Bull driver. Danny Berejnay from Mercedes to Red Bull here just for the mere factor that there aren't enough Mercedes cars on the grid. You can only have 2. And, of course, Benham and Otmir taking 2 of them. There's now Jack West moves ahead of Jake Benham further down as well. Of course, remember, Benham winning last time at Silverstone. He's got a lot of work to do, though, to try and lofty himself into the top 10, though he is going for the hard tyres in this first stint, so he's going to be fast at the end of the race.
And George, I'm seeing in the live chat the bad luck is continuing for Dylan Warren. He's got wing damage due to another screen freeze. It is just such harsh luck for a driver that's been so talented and been so strong so far this evening. A real shame that it's going to end this way for Dylan Warren, but he's still found his way in the top 10. We'll see if he's able to keep the fight with Danny Berejnay and Freddie Rasmussen. Alvaro Carreton and Otis Lawrence will certainly be applying the pressure behind as this race continues along.
Yeah, the frustration's kicking in, no doubt, I'm sure, if you are at this stage Dylan Warren, who has got trials and tribulations to deal with. Freddie Rasmussen really on the rise here, as now Jana Watmir has a little look down the inside of Tamas Gal. Now, Gal is on the mediums, and I would say this, one of the few as well, because we've got 3 drivers occupying that compound, Tom Manley being another one of them, AlphaTauri, incidentally, the only team outside of Tamas Gal's Aston Martin occupying that medium tyre strategy. They're the only team that are committed to the mediums as well as a duo. Freddie Rasmussen, though, on the rise, has already managed to dislodge Alfie Butcher. He's now looking to dislodge Luke Smith. The pace on those soft tyres working extremely well for Freddie, and he's looking dialed in here at Canada.
Yeah, Luke Smith seemingly struggling to keep up with the soft and medium runners of the top 3 on his hards. We'll see if Freddie Rasmussen will be all over him down the next DRS straight, already closing to the rear of the Alpine. Alfie Butcher maybe look to follow through as well and get ahead of Luke Smith. This should be a very exciting, very tantalizing battle on the horizon as they head in towards the hairpin, the heaviest braking zone along this circuit and the most critical traction zone along this track, where the tyres are going to make the very most difference, as Freddie Rasmussen will be all over Luke Smith heading down in towards the wall of champion chicane. This will be an easy move around the outside for Freddie Rasmussen. He'll sail on through ahead of Luke Smith and get himself into the top 4. 1.4 seconds is the gap between himself and Jana Watmir. We'll see if Freddie Rasmussen is able to take the fight to the top 3.
Yeah, well, he's fortunate enough to have DRS here at this point, but he is outside a second. It's 1.4 between Rasmussen and Otmir. Cannot allow the top 3 to get away. Otmir all over the tail of Gal, with Fassi still leading the way. He's had a dream start, Ishmael Fassi. We alluded to the fact that Williams are now, you could argue, much more exciting, given the fact that they've got this new young talent in behind the wheel. Now, I want to allude to the fact that Williams, they made some changes in a managerial sense, as Jack West now, once again on the rise, has had also a stellar start to this race. Aston Martin looking really strong with Gal in second and Jack West in 11th. I want to again touch on Brett Koch, their part of their management team at Williams, has had, should we say, a lot of involvement in the drivers that they have acquired, including the likes of Will Lewis, who is, of course, a PSGL F2 champion. Not only that, Ishmael Fassi as well, who was also in the battle for that F2 championship against Will Lewis too, and since then have become very close friends, have the pair, as Alvaro Carreton in the sister Williams looks to make a move in his own right too, wheel to wheel, this time with Dylan Warren. Of course, Warren having his problems early, and Carreton taking the advantage in that equation, has now taken 8th place.
Real shame for Dylan Warren, considering how good he is along this circuit. He's all over the back of Alvaro Carreton and George. I thought he had a half look around the outside heading in towards turn number 1. Would have been a very bold move, considering he's got that wing damage affecting his Ferrari at the minute. But real shame for Dylan Warren that his race is panning out the way that is. I think the DRS train is sort of saving him in this race, but you just see the difference in pace between himself and Alvaro Carreton. Already half a second, 6/10 separating Carreton and Warren. Should allow for Otis Lawrence to crawl all over the back of Dylan Warren and try and get through, heading down potentially into the Wall of Champions.
Yeah, Otis Lawrence will be the next driver to do that. Jana Watmir, who we were just riding on board with, still chasing down Tamas Gal, who is occupying some really steady pace, some really strong pace on that medium compound. Now, be interesting to see how this medium tyre strategy differs to that of the softs. Obviously, we've got some drivers committing to that hard tyre strat, as Ismail Pookie retakes that 11th place away from Jack West, who is now at the mercy in his own right from Thomas Ronhaar further back, who is only 1.5 tenths behind. It's amazing, isn't it, Dan? The straight line speed you can acquire down that casino straight. We've seen it before. Of course, you see it in tracks like Baku, where you have that long run down that home straight towards turn 1. And just the sheer overspeed you can clock with the slipstream, it is just so devastating. It can make all the difference to a driver's race.
Yeah, around a circuit like Canada or Baku, I've got to turn down my headset because once they're going that fast and they're revving out the engine, it's so difficult to listen to. Here's Otis Lawrence looking for the move on Dylan Warren up the inside of the chicane. A very bold place to go for the move for Otis Lawrence. Hasn't come off this time by Dylan Warren, being saved by the DRS of Alvaro Carreton up ahead, but Otis Lawrence trying to find his way through. Those softs strapped onto the Ferrari going to be dying off very, very soon at this point. Otis Lawrence looking to try and make the move early, because if he doesn't, he'll lose time to the top 8 here.
Yeah, he was floatis over those curbs, heading through turns 6 and 7. Very nearly plumbing for the move as well on Dylan Warren, but just could not quite find it. I think he knows that Warren is in a little bit of a tricky position here, as now we see Alfie Butcher coming together this time with Luke Smith and steals that P5 away. Thomas Ronhar now moving Jack West back down to 13th, who after gaining those initial places, losing out on Warren now in the pits.
Dylan Warren into the pit lane. Wouldn't be surprised if he's getting that front wing replaced. Indeed he will. And onto the medium tyres for the Ferrari driver, George. I reckon that is going to be a 2-stop strategy for Dylan Warren. And if there's any circuit where that's viable, it is this one, because of course that pit exit cuts out turn number 1 and turn number 2 and spits you at the end of the Virage Senna. So maybe this could just work for Dylan Warren if all goes his way.
Yeah, could well do. Credit to Freddie Rasmussen, who has now managed to bring the Delta well within. He's chasing down Jarno Watmere. Alfie Butcher looking to do exactly what Freddie did earlier on and close up that gap that existed outside of second. He has done so successfully, so is now looking to hunt down after Freddie Rasmussen. And again, we're back into DRS train formation all the way down to P19. Dylan Warren, unfortunately, after having to stop onto a set of the medium tyres, has now got 17.3 seconds to catch on Wilson Hughes. But he can use those mediums in the initial to try and regain some pace. We've got 35 laps in total to do here around Canada, as we now see some more wheel-to-wheel action further back. Some gains being made by Tom Manley as well, who is looking to try and fight against Jake Benham, who's in front of him. We've got a double Alpha Tauri scenario further down. Of course, they're battling to try and relinquish Benham of that 13th place. Jack West in 12th as well, who's trying to retain his place against Benham, with Ronhar now occupying 11th, with Pookie in the top 10. And the gap now, Tamas Gal, incidentally, we missed that, in fact, at this point. Dan, Tamas Gal has taken the race lead.
Yeah, he took that in towards the wall of champions. It was a simple DRS move on Ismail Fassi, easy as you like, around the outside. And Ismail Fassi really did have no defense there. So now Tamas Gal back into the lead of this race after losing his pole position on lap number 1. Lap number 7, he was able to retake it ahead of Ismail Fassi. We're getting through these laps, George, I'd say pretty slowly at this point in time. So it's a long race here in Canada. Plenty of opportunities left to go for Ismail Fassi and Jarno Watmere, as there is Thomas Ronhar making the move on Istvan Pookie after being eliminated in Q1. It's good to see that the Dutchman, in Q2, it's good to see that he's been able to fight his way into the top 10, but a big gap to Otis Lawrence ahead of him could allow for Istvan Pookie to go for the move very, very soon, as Alvaro Carreton now the next soft runner to pit.
Yeah, Otis Lawrence now occupying 8th place. Carreton now opting to box off the softs. Now, this might be a declaration, should we say, of the pace between the compounds, because obviously Tamas Gal occupying the mediums. This could mean now we're at the changeover period where the softs start to degrade. I think a little more than the medium, start showing pace loss against that of the medium tyres. Tamas Gal, who has stayed within DRS window sensibly at this point, arguably a sensible first stint, he can now start to put the pressure on those on the softs further back and try and push them to their limits in order to try and, should we say, push the strategy more and more in his favour at this stage, Dan.
Absolutely, Tamas Gal is in a great position now here, George, and Ismail Fassi is all over the back of the Aston Martin and will have that DRS on Tamas Gal down in the casino straight to potentially go around the outside like Tamas Gal did to him just 2 laps ago, but maybe he'll try and sit in his slipstream. It's going to be the former, as there is Ismail Fassi retaking the lead of this Grand Prix, and he will come into the pit lane. Ismail Fassi, your race leader, a very early stop from him there to an undercut strategy on Jarno Watmere and Freddie Rasmussen, who are not averse to the overcut. The last time out, George, if you remember, Jake Benham winning that race with an undercut strategy. Yeah,
that is now at this stage, as I'm reading it, we have got 4 cars that are now boxing off softs to mediums. So there we have it. And Fassi, West, Carreton, Dylan Warren, all of them doing that, albeit Dylan Warren had to box slightly earlier due to damage to his car He has managed to leapfrog Jack West in the initial, has only mustered in 3 laps on his compound. As I say that, Jack West, I think, fighting tooth and nail on the escape and has managed to stay ahead of Dylan Warren further back. So there we have it. Only half a second between them right at the tail end of the field. As we now see the cars now starting to move their way up. At this stage, PSGL at the head of the field on the medium tyres. Now, this could be the lap where we see Opmeer and Rasmussen. Have they got to respond, do you think, here, Dan?
I'd imagine so. I think this is when the softs do really begin to fall off. We've got 26 laps left in this Grand Prix. They can't take the softs much longer in this one, but if they want to make the mediums work towards the end, then they've got to try as hard as they can to stretch this stint out as much in this race. And there they are, both heading down the start-finish straight in tandem with PSGL. So they're going to just sit behind and try and take these tyres as long as possible. The hard runners of Alfie Butcher, Luke Smith, Danny Beresney, they've all been able to close the gap to the leaders now. So you got to think that those hard tyres are the quickest in this race, as Alvaro Carreton takes, out of the leaders who haven't pitted. Alvaro Carreton taking the fastest lap. Alfie Butcher potentially could be on the offensive.
Yeah, Dylan Warren managing to overtake Jack West now, and West now is at the tail end of the field. 4.5 tenths in behind Dylan Warren at this stage. Boxing on lap 6 did Dylan Warren off those softs. Now, in terms of the warnings at this point, 2 warnings going to Thomas Ronhai. He's not having an easy day of it. Qualifying hasn't necessarily gone his way, and the race doesn't seem to be necessarily ideal in terms of Sauber right now, but there's still opportunities in the strategy here, Dan.
Absolutely, there's plenty left in this race for plenty of time left in this race for stuff to occur and all twists and turns that this race can take. So I'm really excited to see how this one finishes out. Jan Ortme getting very close to the rear of PSGL, heading in towards the Wall of Champions, but George, he decided to stay behind. I think Jan Ortme has made his intentions clear. He wants to follow in behind the Aston Martin car and follow in his wheel tracks, essentially getting PSGL to punch a hole in the air for him. That's going to keep his tyres in a nicer condition than they would be if he was leading this race. It also allows for Jarno to save some save up some of his battery, as his teammate Jake Benham takes a 3-second time penalty. Disappointing start to the race for our defending race winner, but we'll have to wait and see how this race pans out. Lap number 12 of 35, and now, George, it feels like we're getting through the laps.
Yeah, we definitely are. Alfie Butcher now looking to try and chase after Freddie Rasmussen. Of course, here on lap 12 of 35, Freddie will he try and defend the place? Obviously, Alfie Butcher just lifting off there slightly, and no interest in making the move around the Opingle hairpin. No point when you've got a long DRS straight that takes you through to the Wall of Champions. Question is, can he take the aero and utilise it this time on Freddie? A look this time here from Jarno Opmeer, who perhaps is looking to try and make an overtake prior to perhaps a pit stop that's coming up soon. Opts to stay out and remain in behind, just controlling his pace right now, controlling his race. And as we now see, breaking out to the aero, Alfie Butcher as well. Very much a game of chess. We've seen it time and time again, as now Tom Manley looks to go wheel to wheel, this time with Jake Benham, the all-star. I'm going to look down the inside to try and retake the place coming out of turn 1 and turn 2, but this time not able to do it. Manley now, P10.
Yeah, nice move from Tom Manley there. He's got his work cut out for him, though. He's 2 seconds to the rear of Istvan Pukki at the tail end of the top 9. So a big chasm sort of has formed at the minute in this race, but between all of the drivers on this grid. If some battling occurs maybe at the front of the order, then possibly Tom Manley and co can try and close that gap up ever so slightly, but it's going to be very difficult with the level that these drivers are racing at. Otis Lawrence looking to also go on the offensive. It seems like maybe some guys starting to get their elbows out. Alfie Butcher is all over the rear of Freddie Rasmussen. He's utilising some of the battery. Alfie could go for the move this time, but it doesn't seem like it. What about Jan Ortme at the front? There it is.
Yeah, he's making a move now. Takes the lead of the race. Does the Flying Dutchman. The big question is, though, does he come in? No. Takes the race lead here at this stage on lap 13. Soon to become lap 14 here at Canada. And it's the Flying Dutchman who heads the field on the 13-lap-old soft tyres. As now we see Danny Beresney down the inside at turn 1. Blast past Luke Smith. It's Opmeer, though, who leads the way.
Yeah, beautiful stuff from Jan Watmir there to just breeze on through on Tamas Gal, not utilising too many of his resources, and he's been able to take the race lead. I wonder if the Dutchman is planning to pit at the end of this lap, potentially. We'll have to wait and see. Freddie Rasmussen is going to want to try and get through on Tamas Gal so he doesn't have to brake for the corner when you can actually just go straight on. That is why Jan Watmir potentially has actually decided to go for the lead of this race, so he doesn't have to brake at the normal point following in the wheel tracks of another car. We'll have to wait and see if that is going to benefit him. Tamas Gal, maybe though, trying to ensure that that doesn't happen. He's all over the back of Jan Watmir, heading down in towards the hairpin, but it seems like Jan Watmir with a good exit, now burning the battery off the exit here. Wouldn't be surprised if this is the lap that Jan Watmir decides to pit.
He might have to. Tamas Gal now opening up the DRS. Of course, no choice as far as he's concerned. He's going to go for the lead of the race and has taken it away from Jan Watmir, but into the pits. Tamas Gal, despite being on medium tyres that could potentially go deeper into the race, he is going to box. Now, an interesting call here from the Aston Martin. Now, what tyre compound has he opted for? It's hard tyres, a one-stop strategy for the Aston Martin.
And George, we've actually just been told by Jona Martins to check on Ismail Fassi. He's at the rear of the train. This is the train for the lead of this race. He's already pitted in this Grand Prix. Ismail Fassi has this... Wow. I mean, some fantastic pace from him, and it could be potentially a Williams 1-2 at the end of this race. Ismail Fassi is going to have such a massive time gap to the rest of the field that he could potentially be unbattled towards the end of this race. You got to look out for the Williams driver, running in 16th at the minute, but once everyone pits, he'll be right at the front of the order.
Yeah, and look at this as well. I mean, he's right behind Wilson Hughes and down the inside of the Epingle hairpin. Just look at that. And also, purple in the second sector with a 22.412. Ismail Fassi on the rise here straight away. And he's not alone either, because Alvaro Caraton, 3.2 behind Wilson Hughes as well. I tell you what, a massive turn up for the Burks. Have Williams put themselves in a position where they could undercut their way here to a very classy finish here at the end of this race. Here comes Fassi again, down the inside this time of Benjamin Oconye as they exit turn 1 into turn 2. He is ruthless, Stanfield.
That was a scary move there. Ben Jabo Oconye did not see it coming, and Ismail Fassi appearing on his inside. A very ballsy and offensive move on Ben Jabo Oconye, working out very nicely in his favour. Danny Berejne, we saw, interestingly enough, pit off of his hard compound of tyres, George, but still Jan Watmir, Freddie Rasmussen, they are overcutting in this race for as long as possible. Here comes Ismail Fassi once again later on the brakes up the inside of Philip Berejne, almost running him off the circuit. A very nice move from Ismail there on the precipice of making his way into the top 10 now.
Yeah, this is absolutely intriguing. We're going to be seeing, I'm sure, differentiating strategies. The big question marks are going to be around those mediums. Are they going to be able to get to the end? No doubt there's probably got to be another stop in there somewhere. And we have seen that Canada can throw in strategic curveballs. Obviously, Fassi on the rise has certainly shown that he is more than capable to compete. We saw his exuberant performance at Bahrain, and now once again on the attack as he now this time looks to take down a two-time F1 Esports World Champion in Brendan Lee. Side by side now between the Sauber and the Williams. The Williams taking the long way around, heading out of turn 2. Manages to successfully dislodge Brendan Lee. It's now top 8 here for Ismail Fassi, and hunting down last week's winner, Jake Benham.
Beautiful stuff from Ismail Fassi there, of course, arriving back here in PSGL with a decent points-paying position last time out in Silverstone. Could he be, maybe, it might be early to say, George, but could Ismail Fassi be a dark horse in this championship fight? There he is, once again up the inside of Jake Benham, and now into P7. What a charge he is having through this field at the minute, but of course he is going to have very worn out tyres towards the end of this race, and if he isn't able to take them towards the finish, he's going to have some troubles, as there it is up the inside now of Tom Manley. He's carving his way through the field.
Unreal. I tell you what, Ismail Fassi can pull a surprise. He is certainly fast, and we've seen him pull off some great displays historically as well. Otis Lawrence now with the lead of the race here at this stage on lap 17 of 35, but that is not the story. The strategic masterclass that could be Ismail Fassi. Lap 17, 7 laps, soon to be 8 laps accrued on this compound of medium tyre, and 4.5 tenths away now from Joni Tormela, one of the longest serving drivers in F1 Esports history here so far. Of course, can be joined with the likes of Brendan Lee. who has also been around for such a long period of time. Fassi boxing all the way back on lap 9 off the soft compound. Now, we did wonder as they made their way around on those soft tyres as to where they'd end up, and Fassi once again making the moves. He gets past Johnny Tormala, heading out of turn 7, and I'm sure many more will tumble down in front of him as well.
Yeah, Fassi he's a joy to watch at the moment. He's chopping his way through the field like they're firewood. It's beautiful stuff from Ismail Fassi, now making his way into the top 5. Could be onto the podium by the end of the next few laps if we don't see, of course, any pit stops from the top 4. But we'll have to wait and see. Of course, we know Dylan Warren has very worn out tyres at the back of the field. Ishmael's only got 3-lap fresher, soft, medium tyres, and Dylan is getting eaten alive by the rest of the field who have pitted on to a set of the medium. So we'll have to wait and see, is this going to work out for Ismail Fassi by the end of this race? We'll have to wait and see, but he's got such a great time advantage on the rest of the field. We just don't know where he's going to end out at this point, and I'm so excited to see in the latter half of this race where it ends out.
Yeah, Jay Benham boxing, as is Thomas Ronhard. Danny Berejne now up to 12th ahead of Tamas Gal, who is being eaten up here at this point by those that are on the medium tyres. Of course, his tyres will eventually get going, but you have to wonder, a strategy that has certainly not worked out for Tamas Gal, who, despite displaying all of his pace in qualifying, has certainly seen it fall away from him here at this stage. Plenty more action further down as they open up. Dan, you've got any news for us?
Yeah, Alvaro Carreton, something's happened to him. Yellow flags in the first sector and a broken front wing for the Williams driver, who is in such a great position. He's got very worn out medium tyres, and I'd imagine he was battling it out as his teammate Ismail Fassi makes his way onto the podium, but something's happened there to Alvaro Carreton, now relegated to last in the field, and I think that's his day over.
I think it is. Luke Smith, though, taking the lead of the race here on lap 19 of 35. We've also got Pookie in behind Fassi as well right now. The two AlphaTauri swapping places as Tom Manley moves up to 5th. So this race starting to unravel on lap 19, now 20. Here with 15 laps still to go. Luke Smith leads the way. He is still yet to pit. We have got cars right through the top 10 that are still yet to box. The only car that has pitted in the top 10 right now is Ismail Fassi, who has been absolutely sensational already. 20 laps completed, 15 laps to go. Can he make these medium tyres last right through the rest of this race? Because if he can, I tell you what, the nearest competitor that is looking to hunt him down is, shall we say, 7.6 seconds away, and that is Danny Berejne. So Berejne, who's obviously looking to try and hunt down a second race win of the season campaign, he needs to find 7.6 seconds of the realm against Fassi, who is knocking down his competitors one by one, and he looks in good vein of form to do it again, this time against Otis Lawrence.
Once all the traffic clears, though, Danny Berejne is going to have clear air to catch up to Ismail Fassi. And if we're going to put the difference between 6-lap fresher tyres in terms of valleys, that's the Grand Canyon.
Oh, here we go. Fassi taking the lead straight away. And also, oh goodness me, they came into box together. Luke Smith and Ismail Fassi not willing to share any track space to come into the pits. And as the game determined, Smith was the first man in, and he held the lead coming into the pits.
So we'll see what happens towards the end of this race now. Who's going to take it? I mean, brilliant stuff with all these strategies. Tom Manley is on a set of the medium on the soft tyres towards the end of this race. He's going to take them an absolute age in this race. Wow, I'm so excited, George. This, honestly, 21 out of 35 laps down. And still, we have got some fantastic racing in store that this race not at all is predictable.
Well, I tell you what, an outlandish strategy here from Ismail Fassi, who's just now adopted another set of tyres, this time a brand new fresh set of mediums. Now, this is going to prove to be a very tricky game for him to play, but bear in mind, Danny Berejne working hard further up and is making his way through the field relentlessly. 4th place now taken away from Wilson Hughes, and has got 3 cars standing between he and P1.
We'll have to wait and see. Danny Berejne is on the cusp of potentially taking his second win this season. Tamas Gal also finding his way through on Wilson Hughes as he'll come into the pits. Brendan Lee is the one driver who is yet to stop in this Grand Prix. So Danny Berejne has got to close up to the back of the Sauber car, and then he will potentially be taking the fight for he will be actually taking the race to lead. It's no longer a net gain for Danny Berejne. This is the fight for P1 in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, and look at this top four complexion as well. And you might as well throw Frederick Rasmussen in this as well. The storylines are absolutely outrageous. Brendan Lee, two-time F1 Esports champion. Jarno Opmeer in P4, two-time F1 Esports champion. Danny Berejnay in second, who was teammate to both of these drivers as well when they took their F1 Esports crowns. We got Tamas Gal, brand new to PCF1, who is in the precipice, or on the precipice, of potentially taking a very first and a debut victory at the highest level of league racing you'll see in the modern era of the F1 game, with Frederick Rasmussen 4 times a runner-up consecutively now in the last 4 years. As now we see Berejnay looking for the lead of the race, former teammate to Brendan Lee. He's just taken the lead away from him here on lap 22. Berejnay leads, Lee now in the pits.
Yeah, that's a good time for Brendan Lee to come into the pit lane. He'd lose a lot more time if he just stayed out and let everyone absolutely swallow him up in this race. Meanwhile, further back, Ishmael Fassi still keep an eye on him. He's on the back of Jake Benham, but Benham, utilizing that DRS and slipstream on the back of Luke Smith, means that Ishmael cannot find a way through. Has he hit a wall? The young Spanish driver will have to wait and see. Jake Benham doing a fantastic job of defending his position at the minute, of course, with a penalty to his name, so he's going to lose this position no matter what happens in this Grand Prix if he's not 3 seconds ahead of Ishmael Fassi behind. We'll just have to wait and see. Lap 23 of 35, still plenty of time left for action in this race. All those tyres at the front, George, are going to die off with the exception of Tamas Gal, and that means that the likes of Luke Smith, Ishmael Fassi, Otis Lawrence, Istvan Pukki, who have got these 2-lap-old medium tyres, will be all over the back of them in the latter stage of this Grand Prix.
Well, Ishmael Fassi, whilst he is in 9th place, he's right on the tail of the All-Star Jake Benham. 2 laps separate them in terms of tyre life. And if Fassi wants any chance of converting his early exploits into a successful result, he needs to go to work. And it's not only that, the deficits as well that exist between P7, P6 and P5 are absolutely ridiculous right now. The gaps are mighty, and Ishmael needs to put in a mighty performance in order to knock them down. Again, trying to break out of the aero between he and young Jake Benham. Tamas Gal, the longer he's on those hard tyres, the better they will become, and is currently in the wheel tracks of Danny Berejnay with Jarno Opmeer all over his tail. A baptism of fire for the youngster as he looks to deliver a clinical debut PCF1 performance.
Doing a brilliant job at the minute, and this is when his hard tyres are going to begin to phase into this Grand Prix, and he potentially take the fight towards his fellow countryman, Danny Berejnay. The 2 Mercedes Esports teammates are going to look to attack, and there it is. You know what, down the inside of the hairpin of Tamas Gal and off the exit of the corner, and Jarno Opmeer will find that move. Tamas Gal doing all he can to maintain position there, but he cannot deny Jarno Opmeer through on that move.
Yeah, Jarno Opmeer now not only taking P2, he has a look down the inside, I think, maybe more defensively than aggressively, maybe just second-guessing the Tamas Gal return against him this time around. Gal, though, fed up and waiting again, looking to try and perhaps poach P2, heading through towards turn 1, can't quite find it, but already the gauntlet laid down as the 2 Mercedes teammates in F1 Esports come together at the head of the field. It's Berejnay and Opmeer with Gal and Rasmussen in behind.
Yeah, slight tyre advantage for Jarno Opmeer. Jack West comes into the pit lane to retire from this race. Danny Berejnay with 9-lap-old medium tyres. Jarno Opmeer only with 8. Tamas Gal, the longer this race goes on, the better his tyres are going to be towards the end. So he's just got to stay patient with these guys. Try and keep up with the 2 leaders and not fall victim to the likes of Freddie Rasmussen, Alfie Butcher in behind. The top 5 in their own world at this point. It's a brilliant DRS train that we are seeing. And Tamas Gal, I've gotta say, George, I don't think that he's done in this race. He'll be looking for vengeance on the 2 Mercedes Esports drivers.
Yeah, and either way it goes, he has not done himself a disservice. He is now fighting for the very, very best results, as now we see Jake Benham and Ishmael Fassi coming together this time, and Fassi, taking the long way round, has stolen it at the Apingle hairpin in great style. Jarno Opmeer also looking for the big moves, looks down the inside of his compatriot. I tell you what, that was risky. Danny Berejnay, and there's history here for Jarno Opmeer at that particular piece of circuit. He and Alessio Di Capua came to knives earlier on as well in their league racing careers. Tamas Gal leaving it deep, and now in comes Freddie Rasmussen as they run wheel to wheel out of turn 2. They stay together. Freddie looking for the launch, heads through into P3, takes it away from Tamas Gal in true fashion. Fantastic from the Great Dane.
And here comes Alfie Butcher now up the inside in the second sector, taking the fight to Tamas Gal, wheel to wheel, off the exit. Alfie Butcher's going to have the better run and down the DRS straight. Sensational battling from both Freddie Rasmussen and Alfie Butcher, making their way through on Tamas Gal. But the young Hungarian driver, George, he cannot be deterred. His tyres will be better at the end of this race. 10 laps to go, 9 this time by. Who's going to come out on top? The top 5 all in all in a DRS train together, but Thomas Ronhaar is creeping his way in as well.
Yeah, the top 3 now are the big players. You've got Danny Berejnay, as we said before, forever the bridesmaid, never the bride, is now, of course, been teammate, part of teams that have won championships historically, has never quite won one himself at the highest level. Jarno Opmeer doing it twice, Fredrik Rasmussen being vice champion now 4 years running. It is truly a GOAT top 3 that are fighting it out for a win here at Canada, but Berejnay looking to become a 2-time race winner this season for the first time of anybody here in this championship fight in PSGL. Alfie Butcher in 4th. Remember, of course, his heroic drive on the same strategy as young Jake Benham, managing to capitalise and take P3 in that very, very exuberant race back at Silverstone, with Tamas Gal still very much waiting in the wings. I would argue at this point, Tamas Gal's certainly his time at the very top isn't done yet as Caraton retires in the pit lane.
Yeah, and I think Tamas Gal is going to have to look in his rear view mirrors, because here comes Thomas Ronhaar in towards the hairpin. They go. The Dutchman late on the brakes down the inside. And Alfie Butcher makes an error. Here comes Thomas Ronhaar looking to take 2 into 1 off the exit of the corner. Alfie Butcher is going to have a difficult run, and Thomas Ronhaar will be all over the back of him, heading in towards the wall of champion chicane. It looks like Alfie Butcher has got his bearings. Tamas Gal looks once again back up the inside of Thomas Ronhaar, but isn't able to find the move this time by. And this is what PSGL PCF1 is all about, George. So many narratives, so many stories. Here's Alfie Butcher around the outside of turn number 1.
Yeah, youngster now who joins Haas for his very first F1 esports season and has now taken down Freddie Rasmussen. He's now occupying 3rd place. The Butcher brings down the carving knife and takes P3 away from Freddie Rasmussen in what was a Red Bull 1 and 3, if you consider PSGL liveries. And now here at this stage, the Butcher has an opportunity of elevating himself from that P3 he took last week to a potential P2 or maybe a P1 deep into the race. But it's Berejnay who leads, with Opmeer in 2nd. Butcher, though, closing them down, with Thomas Ronhaar now fighting against the Great Dane.
Here comes Thomas Ronhaar up the inside of Freddie Rasmussen. 2-lap fresher tyres strapped onto his Sauber car, and he'll make the move up the inside of the hairpin. That seems to be where all the moves are taking place tonight. And they'll run wheel to wheel down the back straight. Sensational battling between the pair of them. Freddie Rasmussen with a nose ahead for the time being. Into the braking zone they go. The Great Dane defends his position, and he'll maintain P4.
And look who's behind there as well. Ismail Fassi has caught the train, and he's got the youngest tyres of anybody in the top 7. He can use and abuse them here in the closing laps. 6 laps remain here at Canada, and I tell you what, a gargantuan fight with strategical masterminds all across this grid, of course, that are trying to escalate the best positions they can in this grid order. We're seeing the fighting being done on track, but also in the pit lane at the same time as well. And Tamas Gal all over the tail here of Thomas Ronhaar, with Ronhaar on the tail of Rasmussen. It very much is the domino effect, but who will be the first to fall here in round 4?
Ismail Fassi is so much more confident on the brakes on the back of Tamas Gal, who once again might have to defend in towards the hairpin corner. Use a bit of the battery. It doesn't matter though. Ismail Fassi and Thomas Ronhaar in tandem up the inside. Contact between Ronhaar and Freddie Rasmussen off the exit of the corner. And oh my word, Ismail Fassi onto the grass. 3 abreast heading down the back straight this time by. Freddie Rasmussen still ahead at this point. And here he comes now in towards the wall of champions.
Oh my goodness.
Fassi making the moves and into P4.
Oh no, big DNF, massive crash. That is outrageous. Ismail Fassi, a safety car has been released. Fassi made the double overtake. He blasted past the pair, and a DNF for Tamas Gal and Freddie Rasmussen, with Thomas Ronhaar out as well. Devastating at the wall of champions. I tell you what, the drama has hit the heights, and look at this. 5 cars in the pits already. Brendan Lee, Benjamin O'Connor, Philip Presnay and Wilson Hughes, Yoni Tormala. Absolutely devastating scenes here at Montreal.
Oh my word, and wow. George, I honestly, I'm lost for words. I've seen, was that an Alpha, a Sauber car of Thomas Ronhaar sideways? Not horizontally, vertically sideways, heading off the exit of the Wall of Champions. That is a massive incident. So many drivers caught up in that. Wow, and I think the saving grace for the leaders is they've been able to overtake the safety car. Now they can pit without worrying of the likes of Tom Manley, Brendan Lee, Ben Shabakoni, all of those guys who have been able to pit before them. So Danny Bergenay should still be in the best position, but essentially this race has been reset. We're on lap number 30 of 35-31 this time by, as expected, all the leaders without hesitation. Danny Bergenay, drive-through penalty.
Speeding under the safety car, a drive-through penalty. And Jake Benham also receiving the same treatment as well. Stop-go penalties as well for Tom Manley. He also picks up a drive-through penalty as well. So it's insult to injury. Goodness me. So that's 2 of our PSGL race winners this season laying claim to time penalties under the safety car, Danfield.
What's happened there? Drive-through penalties. When did they get that? How? Jan Ortmir's come out ahead, by the way. He's been able to leapfrog above Danny Bergenay, and now Jan Ortmir could be the man to potentially take victory in this race. So many questions. Everything is I'm losing my words.
Well,
honestly, George, I don't know what's going on.
I tell you what's incredible. Obviously, there's no rain. We can forget the weather implement. We have got a small matter of 4 laps until we end this race. We've got all the grid pretty much on fresh softs, bar those that boxed earlier of anybody. Obviously, Brendan Lee, Ben Connie, Philip Preslater and Wilson Hughes, I think we're hoping they could jump the group of cars that went in and boxed the following lap. It hasn't necessarily worked as well as they would hope, but still, nevertheless, we've got a race shootout here at this point, guys. And look who's on the table for this one. I mean, Ismail Fassi, say what you want. I mean, the strategy has been unreal. He's gone against the grain of absolutely everybody and is now occupying himself in 4th place. Bear in mind he started 2nd. An outlandish strategy, though, that seems to be working for him under this safety car. I also want to allude to the great performance of Jake Benham until he received the drive-through. 13th place is where he started. He's up into P7. Anyone now in the top 10 can win this one. And I tell you what, I don't know who it's going to be, but Dan, who'd have thought? Who'd have thought that?
You know what, George? I think now that I've been able to actually digest what's happened, it's becoming very, very clear what is happening down at the Mercedes Esports camp. Danny Bergenay, I think, probably unfairly, has got a drive-through penalty there. He was ahead of Jan Ortmir. After watching the stream back, he was ahead off the exit of the pit lane. Now, he's let Jan Ortmir through with his drive-through penalty, which he doesn't have to serve for 2 laps until after the safety car comes back in. He'll use that time, I think, to hold up Alfie Butcher, Ishmael Fassi, Luke Smith, all of those guys who are going to take the fight to Jan Ortmir, and then Pitt and Jana will have the advantage. I think Jana Ortmir, it's his race to lose.
Well, without any doubt, it's going to be one of the most controversial moments I think we have seen on many other levels, because not only just the pit lane incident, obviously the pit stop scenario, but also just the crash itself, Dan. Arguably one of the most devastating and no doubt controversial crashes we have seen in modern PSGL.
Absolutely. I mean, that is that is one to talk about for, I think, the rest of this season. And George, for some reason, these F1 esports drivers, they love going vertically sideways at Canada. David Tinitzer did it in 2019, and now Thomas Ronhaar is doing his best impression here in 2024. History is rewriting itself. The safety car is in this lap. We'll have 3 to go. Who's going to take it?
Well, look at this, folks. We have got a fascinating encounter to come. Everyone on fresher soft tyres. Jana Ortmir leads the way. Could he be on the cusp of taking victory here in season 35-36? Who knows? They've got the Wall of Champions to come, the safety car in this lap, as we now await the cars to get going again. And as Jana Ortmir exits the Wall of Champions, a 2-time champion He'll now put pedal to the metal for the second time in this race and has already cleared Danny Berejnay. Now this is intriguing. Remember, Danny's got a penalty. Is he playing Mercedes team game straight away here downfield? Because there's quite a gap between he and the Flying Dutchman.
Alfie Butcher's got to get through as soon as possible on the back of Danny Berejnay, but Danny is doing a very good job of keeping with the Flying Dutchman. Otis Lawrence and Luke Smith doing battle further back down for P5 as Otis Lawrence now looks for the move heading in towards this DRS straight. Of course, none of that for the next 2 laps in this one. Luke Smith, though, with the inside line, will be able to hold off Otis Lawrence. Still high drama. 2 to go next time by. Jan Ortmez still leading ahead of Danny Berejnay.
He certainly is, but Otis Lawrence isn't done yet. Has another look down the inside. A very dangerous one, it has to be said. Probably reckless in many ways. Managed to recover it, though, as they now exit the Epingle hairpin. Great chance here, though. No DRS, as you so rightly alluded to. We, of course, need to have a few laps in the books before we get it back underway again. Alfie Butcher, though, looking like he's licking his lips here at the prospects of perhaps taking on Danny Berejnay. Needs to as well if he wants a chance of winning this race. Berejnay is going to be a real difficult and tricky customer, as I'm sure, no doubt, Mercedes have got on the phone and said, come and do your teammate a favour. We have got a win potentially in our hands.
And Alfie Butcher doesn't have any better tyres than Danny Berejnay. They all pitted at the same time. It's still going to be an incredibly hard move for Alfie Butcher to get through. And now once Danny Berejnay pits at the end of this lap, Alfie Butcher is not going to be within DRS range. Of course, we're going to have DRS, I think, for the very last lap. Alfie is not going to get a taste of it, and I just don't see a way Jarno loses this race.
No, I don't think he can. Penultimate lap now here. We got 35 laps in total. We're on lap 34, soon to be lap 35. Jarno Opmeer leads the way and has done so convincingly now since the safety car restart, and that gap now is going outwards again. It's on the cusp of a whole second, with DRS now falling away from Berejnay, and as a consequence, Alfie Butcher and Ismail Fassi, they're going to break away from Jarno Opmeer at the front, with Opmeer now careering away to begin the final lap of the race, exiting the Wall of Champions. A Mercedes managed affair here at the start of this race, right through to this point, as now Benham comes into the pits. Danny Berejnay has been disqualified and therefore has held up Alfie Butcher in the process.
Oh, his AI is actually sitting in the it was sitting in the middle of the road on the apex. And is that another smart move from Danny Berejnay there to allow sort of just be a visual distraction to these guys? That is a very cheeky move, I'd say, from Danny Berejnay there, but nevertheless, Jarno Opmeer 2 seconds clear of Alfie Butcher, barring any massive mistake from the Dutchman. 1 sector to go. It's going to be a win for Jarno Opmeer in season 35 and 6.
It certainly will be, but P2 is still up for question, and Ismail Fassi is all over the tail of Alfie Butcher at this point. The Epingle hairpin could be decisive as I look down the inside here from Fassi. Butcher, I think, happy to relinquish it, perhaps to stay within the aero, but might have sacrificed speed heading out to the hairpin itself. Great chance here now, but we've got to cut away to the front shortly, as now the battle for P2 opens up. It will be Fassi, but Jarno Opmeer, for the first time this season, we have seen Berejnay do it. We saw Benham do it. Now 3 Mercedes drivers win in PSGL this season. It's Jarno Opmeer. He wins the Canadian Grand Prix here at Montreal.
Beautiful stuff there from the Mercedes esports camp. Danny Berejnay, take a bow. I mean, hats off to him for allowing for Jarno Opmeer to take victory in this one. Jarno Opmeer, no disservice to him though. It's a thoroughly deserved victory for the Dutchman, who finally takes victory in season 35 and 36. He is now the 4th race winner. It's a second race win in a row for the Mercedes team in PSGL. And George, for the Mercedes esports scheme, that is 3 out of 4 wins going their way. Mercedes are in some fine form at the moment.
They certainly are. We called it as we crossed the line. We saw Jarno take victory and make it 3 drivers taking race wins in PSGL. The domination is here and now. It was race 1 for Danny Berejnay. It was race 3 for Jake Benham. It was race 4 for the Flying Dutchman. Jarno Opmeer bows superior here at Montreal. The Canadian crowds will watch on with great delight, with Jake Benham obviously not featuring inside the top 10. It's credit though to Alfie Butcher, who matched his strategy last week at Britain. Once again, he's on the podium. and in great fashion as well. Credit to Ismail Fassi after a splendid drive, but it's Jarno Opmeer, your victor, and has taken the fastest lap as well. Ismail Fassi second, with Alfie Butcher third, Luke Smith in fourth. We've got Otis Lawrence in fifth. Brendan Lee, what a drive to finally push his car 10 places up the grid. He finishes sixth. Ben Jabo-Conyi seventh. Philip Prejnader eighth. Wilson Hughes ninth. Istvan Pukki 10th. Yoni Tormala in 11th. Tom Manley in 12th. Jake Benham 13th. Tamas Gal out of the race after collision with Freddie Rasmussen. We also lost Ronha as a consequence, with Dylan Warren losing out early on. Caraton, Jack West, Danny Berejnet getting disqualified for not serving his pit lane penalty. But there we go, folks. Outrageous, Stanfield. Outrageous. Fantastic win, though, for Jarno. And has managed, obviously, it was a Mercedes-managed race, wasn't it, at the end of the day? Whilst Danny Berejnet is not a Red Bull driver, he is Mercedes. So we can understand the team interplay there from the Mercedes camp, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely, George. I mean, what a sensational race just throughout. Honestly, there was so many twists and turns. I thought at one point, we all thought at one point Ismail Fassi was going to take the victory. Then it looked like Danny Berejnet was going to be in the best position to take the win. Then Jarno Opmeer took victory. I mean, it was just all over the place. You got to feel for Danny Berejnet because he wasn't actually speeding heading in towards the pit lane, and he got a penalty for it because I think his delta was negative coming into the pit lane. I'm looking at a screenshot that was put in the F1 Discord chat. His delta was negative as he came into the pit lane, and for whatever reason, George, that has meant that he has taken that drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. So, yeah, real shame for him. But Jarno Opmeer coming up with the victory, and what a way to do it. In, once again, a fantastic race. It just doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, no, absolutely right indeed. And I tell you what, we're going to be joined by our podium sitters as well. We're going to start things off, though, with Alfie Butcher, who, after another stellar display, a very close-fought battle, you took Ismail Fassi all the way to the very end, Alfie. I think, obviously, you might be feeling a little bit fraught as well, because of, obviously, Danny Berejnet under a penalty. Got disqualified in the final lap. You must have been wondering what could have been. It could have been a victory, right?
Yeah, it could have been. I always knew that. I mean, going into the last few laps, having Danny and Jarno in front, it was going to be a tough one to fight. But obviously, the safety car came and mixed it up. Danny was really unfortunate to get the drive through. I'm not too sure why or how, but I guess I'll see after. I think, yeah, it was a bit of a sticky one. Obviously, him getting disqualified really disrupted my final lap and ultimately put me under more pressure than I perhaps could have been. But I mean, I'm happy with the P3 despite all the factors that went into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a good time for you, it has to be said, Alfie. I think given the fact that you performed so valiantly back in Britain as well, you were on the same strategy as Jake Benham, who went to win that race. You finished in third on that occasion. It's back-to-back podiums. The rise seems real for you right now, and the pace certainly looks red hot. A three-tyre strategy today. You started on the hards, mediums midway through, and then finishing on the softs, as pretty much everyone did after the safety car. Were you pleased with how the race panned out, or do you think there was something you could have changed?
Yeah, I thought, if I'm honest, I did what I could in the race. Obviously, the safety car at the end spiced things up a little bit, but perhaps it sort of helped me in some regards and sort of didn't. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way I drove and happy with the race panned out. And yeah, I've got to say congrats to the top two.
Yeah, well, credit to you as well, Alfie. A great start to the season. We wish you all the very best as we head into another PSGL round next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alfie. Next up, we will speak, firstly, I think, to Ismail Fassi. We'll save Jarno for last, I think, and we'll speak to him later on. Ismail, probably one of the most bizarre strategies we have seen, I think, it has to be said. The box that took us all by surprise, I think, was midway through when you went on a second set of medium tyres. But it was a pleasure to watch you sort of dynamically make your way through the field. It was left, right and centres, overtakes aplenty. You look like you were enjoying yourself out in Montreal.
Yeah, first of all, GG's to Jarno and Alfie. Well, I thought people would bid to do two stops. They didn't in the end, so I was kind of surprised. And, well, second stint I had to push alone without using DRS to overtake later on. And yeah, I think pace was very, very strong. I'm still happy even though I got P2 after all that has happened. But I feel like maybe the race win was there. But yeah, P2 is still a good position after the cars I had in front of me and crashes. The late safety car changed a bit the race, I'd say. I was low on battery, and I feel also a bit sad for Alfie, who got disturbed by Danny's car. But yeah, just had DRS, which helped me pass him, and Jarno was quite far ahead. So nothing more.
No, well, the qualifying, I think, for you as well was quite important, wasn't it? How about that lap as well to put you P2 at the start of the race? A huge mission. I think I also understand you had 3 warnings against your name. So how conscious were you of perhaps getting a time penalty towards the very end?
The second warning, I didn't know if was legit or not because I had to leave space to overtake. So I got the warning, but I was still scared of getting the third one. But Alfie was also on 2 warnings, so he had to take care as well. But in the end, yeah, just DRS helped me.
Yeah, it was a fantastic race, Ismail. Congratulations on a fantastic podium. We wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ishmael. And last but not least, folks, we got our race winner for the first time this season and has made it a Mercedes team. 3 times a victory here for Mercedes, if you factor in Berezhny, of course, being a Mercedes driver through and through. 3 wins out of 4 for Mercedes. Jarno, you, of course, bringing them their 3rd. And it must be said, one of the most chaotic and controversial races, not necessarily because of yourself, because, of course, we had that massive crash towards the end, which obviously helped you in the way towards the end because it allowed you to take one of the higher places in the top 10. You must be thrilled, though, coming out of that a victor.
Yes, especially with the safety coming in late. I felt like both me and Danny had the race kind of wrapped up, and it was going to be a cruise almost to a 1-2. Not sure in what order, of course, but yeah, safety car kind of mixed things up a little bit. And then Danny getting a weird drive-through penalty as well. Yeah, I felt like Danny was not actually the only one that got a drive-through. I felt like I was a little bit lucky.
There was quite a few, yeah.
Yeah, I think no one really understands why Wu got a drive-through. But yeah, it is what it is. I don't know if PSGL can do anything about it, but yeah. And then Danny let me through on the pit exit, of course, so that was very nice of him. He instantly played a team game when he knew his race was ruined by the game. But yeah, just owe Danny a few beers. Other than that, was a great race for me. Qualifying was not great either, or not bad, but not great as well. But yeah, I'm just happy that I think every race so far this season I've qualified top 5, which I'm very happy with, which is usually a bit of my weakness. But yeah, Montreal being one of my favorite tracks, I had to win. So yeah, big thank you to Danny for playing the team game straight away. And yeah, he was just incredibly unlucky that race.
Yeah, well, it's either your turn to buy the beers or it's your turn to buy the snacks. Either way, I'm sure Danny won't mind. But, I mean, it has to be said, a fantastic race. Of course, you started P5 in that race after a decent qualifying. You admit, obviously, that qualifying isn't generally your strong suit. Obviously, you're more about what happens in the race, strategic-minded as well. Fastest lap, it definitely was a welcome return to Canada for you. What's it like returning after never, ever having it appear in PSGL? Of course, we all remember that fond moment as well of Tanitsa desyncing over the top of you one season in F1 esports. Where does Canada rank on your tier of tracks?
A lot of people are going to disagree with me, but it's one of my favorite tracks. Not because I think it's a nice track, but in general, I'm always really good at it. I think I've never finished further than P2 in F1 esports on Montreal. So I would really like if they would bring it back for F1 esports one day. Because historically seen, it's a great track for me. But yeah, it's not because it's a great track to drive on or a fun track to drive on. But historically, I'm just good at it, so that instantly makes it a little bit better.
Well, it's one of the all-time OGs, isn't it, of Formula One, really? When you look back, it's been on the calendar for quite some time, but everything seems harmonious in Mercedes at the moment. We allude back, to, obviously, to the results that you've had already in 4 rounds of PSGL. Danny, of course, taking the first win. Jake then claiming a phenomenal victory in round 3, and now yourself making it 4 wins for Mercedes in... 3 wins for Mercedes in 4 rounds. That's got to mean a lot to the team, and obviously things are working well behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's going well. Now, to be honest, lately we've not been doing a lot. I mean, I only started practicing for this race today. Of course, we're quite late in the game cycle, and there's not much to practice for at the moment. So, been taking a chill. Did the Daytona 24 hours, and other than that, we're just trying to, practice as much as we can without getting incredibly bored. I mean, I've got the Steam app in front of me, and I've got 970 hours on F1 23, so I know how the game works. I know how fast I am on it, and what my weak points are, and yeah, that's it basically. So yeah, it's working well, but I think it's also because we're not overplaying the game too much and practicing like crazy anymore. I don't think a lot of people are practicing a lot anymore because we don't really know what's going to happen. So
yeah, no, that's a fair assessment, and already securing a victory, and plenty more I'm sure to come. Jarno, congratulations on the stellar win, and we look forward to the future races.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Jarno Opmeer, everybody. Of course, race winner at Canada and his first win this season. Dan, what a race. I think obviously we look back at Silverstone as being one of the great races for mere overtaking. I think this will go down as probably one of the most memorable in terms of controversy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been looking in the Discord chat, George.
I was waiting for you to say that, Dan.
lots of words I can't say on stream, unfortunately. But no one's happy at the moment. I think they're well within their rights too. I looked at Danny Berejnet's stream. Of course, he's streaming on YouTube, and looking at the frustration that was in his reaction to what had happened. It was so upsetting to see, because he was just so. It's hard to put into words, honestly, what actually Danny Berejnet was feeling in that moment. But George, he was not. I don't want to say it, at the risk of being mean or anything, but the passion that he puts into this game and the work that he puts into practicing just for it to be taken away by a silly little glitch, it is really upsetting to see. And Danny Berejnet, he can't be deterred by this at all. Still one of the best drivers, I think, on this grid after so long here this in the league racing and F1 esports scene, and it is very upsetting to see how his race turns out. Fingers crossed, George, he can get that elusive second win next time out, next Wednesday, of course, but it's a real shame that it had to end this way for him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, obviously, one thing we do have to take into account as well, Dan, there's not really anything PSGL can really do about this, because with it being an in-game glitch, it's not like you can file a steward's report, because who do you file it against? Because no one really caused you to have that drive-through. It's only really the game itself. But, it's one of those factors. I suppose, when you look at some of the other drivers that were caught up as well in that fight earlier on, I think, no doubt, certainly no question, I'm sure the incident itself is going to be investigated at the Wall of Champions. Obviously, we only saw one camera shot coming through, probably not the best camera shot coming through the Wall of Champions in order to determine what actually happened there. But obviously, off the basis of that, I think frustration's running high, and it's probably the biggest arc in terms of, going from success to ultimate failure for Tamas Gal, for a debut race to take pole and then DNF in that fashion. It must be sickening.
It is a lot, really, to digest, I think, in this race. And it's just a real shame that it did have to end that way, because, George, it was such a fantastic race throughout the entirety of it. And it was so fun to watch, and it ended in the fashion that it did. It's heartbreaking to see, really, that the likes of Tamas Gal, Danny Berejnet, Thomas Ronhol, they all have to have their races ruined in these circumstances. And Freddie Rasmussen as well. I know Tom Manley, Jake Benham, they also got drive-through penalties. So, you've got to once again turn the attention to the game and how it's actually coded, because someone in the PSGL chat, Alex Lamorte, says it gave drive through to the people that it gave drive through to the people that didn't use the pit limiter. Why is that a thing? Why would you get a drive-through penalty for not using your pit limiter, but you're under the speed limit? It doesn't make any sense to me, and it really is something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, unfortunate scenes and scenarios there for the drivers. But folks, I tell you what, one thing's for sure, you guys have been stellar. We've witnessed a stellar race, lots of controversy. That's sport for you, whether it's esports, whether it's gaming, whether it's real-life sport, it does happen. But nevertheless, we appreciate every single one of you for tuning in live wherever you are in the world, on whichever platform you've been tuning on from as well. And speaking of which, a big shout out as well, first of all, though, to our sponsors, GT Omega and SRC, of course, Sim Racing Centre, who've just recently joined us leading up to the Canadian race. And another thing that has joined us is Twitch as well. If you want to check out PSGL on YouTube, first and foremost, make sure you hit that red button, the subscribe button, as well as the like button as well, to stay up to date with everything that happens here at PSGL. Whenever a stream goes live, you will see it. And why not follow the Twitch as well? Brand spanking new to PSGL. We hope you guys at home enjoyed it. If you tuned in on Twitch, hit that follow button and stay up to date with when we go live, and you'll be able to stay up to date with all the top tier actions live on the Premier Sim GL Twitch channel. If you want to check them out as well on Twitter, you can. It's at Premier Sim GL. Again, you know where it goes. You'll see the standings. You'll see the race results updated on there. There is also an Instagram too, where you can also see the race results come through as well. If you want to check me out, you can at George Morgan TV on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok, pretty much everywhere with the same username. And it's always a pleasure commentating to you guys at home as well. Danfield, where can they find you, sir?
You can find me on Twitter, DanfieldF1_. That's the only platform I'm really active on at this point in time. But yeah, follow me there, DanfieldF1_. That's it from me, George.
Yeah, well, that's Mercedes with a terrific treble in 4 races. Berejne, Benham and Otmir, proving that they are certainly a cut amongst the best of them after 4 rounds have concluded here at Premier Sim Gaming Leagues. We now move on to round 5, which will be brought to your attention very soon next week. But until then, folks, take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you again soon. Goodbye.
He's got the inside, but up here is through on the left-hand side. Hooks the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Otmir now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the GOAT is back. Jarno Otmir wins the US Grand Prix in a stunning Grand Prix.